Let's get scratching. Scratch. Scratching.
Y'all ready to get funky?
Look at the
The most important part of dance is music. So now let us listen to the music and identify the beats. But that was too soft.
Let's look at the funk. Let's look at the funk.
Scratch. Scratching. Scratch. Scratching.
So I don't actually know how sensitive this mic is. I'm playing it back to myself, so I'm actually speaking really fucking quietly, and I really don't know how this is gonna turn out. So, you know, I I cobbled together a quick quick overlay for this stream because I thought it would be really funny, but, you know, I don't really know where I'm going with this, and so, you know, we're in uncharted territory. I've never done ASMR. I've never done reading stuff, so it's this microphone's fucking weird, right? Like, you know, kind of, you can hear pretty much everything that's going on around me, and I'm gonna essentially be reading through a book made for children. I don't know. It's like, anytime I see like ASMR streamers, they're pretty like, they like put their hands on their hand on the ears of the thing, and they're just kind of like, and like they're like, oh wow, tingles, whoa. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. But I wanted to do this reading stream because I thought it'd be kind of funny. I think I explained this, but if you ever knew about Scholastic, Scholastic is a book publishing company oriented towards children. And if you don't know, video games were this new hot thing back in the 80s. There's this cute little game, you might have heard of it, it's called Metal Gear. And in an attempt to get more children to read, there was a incentive by this one guy to make a bunch of books that were based off of a bunch of NES games, right? So what ended up happening was they wanted to encourage kids to read, and so they made a bunch of books called Worlds of Power. You wonder if this was anyone's first exposure to Metal Gear? No, I'd assume so. The thing is that Metal Gear on the NES was an explosive success. Yeah, I kind of wonder if this is someone's first, like, book, or someone's first introduction to Metal Gear. But for the most part, it's, like, not, it's kind of schlocky, it's kind of silly, and I think I'm gonna, I don't know, it's very silly, and I don't really know what to expect, because I haven't read through this before. I don't even have my water bottle, holy shit. Yeah, it's gonna be a very different kind of stream, so tell me if this is, not your cup of tea, and, we'll go from there. I think it's very funny, but, you know, you guys bought me an ASMR mic, so I'm gonna fucking use it. So we're going to have fun. Yeah, tell me if the audio sounds off, because other than listening to myself, I don't really have a way of knowing, but I mean, it's kind of fun, right? So, okay, anyway, so, right, Metal Gear, if you don't know what it is a very popular franchise made by a man named Hideo Kojimbo. It has achieved pretty much mainstream popularity, and it was, yeah, novelizations for this franchise have never been good, but it's still funny to sort of think about it in. So, you know, that being said, okay. Chapter 1, The Mission. Justin Haley, it won't be good, it'll be amazing though, maybe. Justin Haley strode purposefully through the underground hallways of Foxhound Command. At age 20, he was the youngest captain ever to serve in the U.S. Marines Special Forces anti-terrorist squad known as the Snake Men. His code name? Solid Snake. Haley had a lot on his mind. 3 weeks earlier, 15 Snake Men, half the squadron, had been dispatched from their underground training base on a top-secret mission. So far, not a single one of them had returned. Were they dead? Captured? No. None of the remaining Snake Men dared to speak of it out loud. They could only wait and wonder. Now of the 15 Snake Men left, only Justin Haley had been sent for. The order had come directly from Commander South, head officer of the Foxhound Command, and the military unit controlling the Snake Men. Hi, Kendrick. Welcome on in. Now, As Haley entered the command center, he saw that the vast room was empty except for 3 people. Himself, Foxhound Commander South, and South's brand new second-in-command, Lieutenant General West. I should also clarify something. Before Metal Gear Solid 1, Solid Snake didn't have a name. So, in order to make this more agreeable for an American audience, they named Solid Snake Justin Haley, and they renamed, I think they renamed Big Boss like something Commander Katafi or something like that, right? I think in the book they call him Commander South, but the reason why they went with Katafi was to make it more relevant to real-world things, such as dictator Gaddafi, which aged like fine wine. Hey Jack, welcome on in. Welcome, welcome. I mute the mic to cough. Coughs in the mic. As usual, Commander South was in combat fatigues. Generals, stars on his shoulders, colorful campaign ribbons and medals pinned to his chest. His camouflage pants tucked into his high-laced boots. A battered old beret with the insignia of the Snakemen was pulled down at an angle on his head. The beret had been with Commander South all the way through his many paratroop missions in Vietnam. He'd soon part with his right hand rather than the ancient piece of clothing. Lieutenant General West was wearing his dress blue uniform, freshly cleaned and pressed, and so stiff that it could stand at attention all by itself. The spit polish on his black shoes gleamed. West was a by-the-book kind of officer, but he'd improve with time. The Snakemen squad would see to that. The Steakmen. Delicious. Solid Snake, we have a special mission for you, South told Haley, who stood straight and tall before him at attention, his dark blue eyes front. It is voluntary, Captain Haley. You don't have to go. It may very well cost you your life. In fact, the chances are 10,000 to 1 against you. Sir, Justin called out snappily, his gaze never wavering. Have you ever heard of Dr. Ivan Petovich? Dr. Petovich, the astrophysicist and nuclear scientist who defected to our side from the Soviet Union 6 years ago. Yes, sir. That's the man. 8 months ago, he was kidnapped, and he seems to have disappeared off the face of the earth. We expected to hear that one terrorist group or another was claiming credit for his capture and was holding him hostage. No word came. We didn't know if he was alive or dead. Now, we believe that he's in fact alive, but a prisoner. For some months now, our intelligence forces have been picking up random clues. We thought at first those clues were unconnected, but when we put them all together over a period of time, they began to point to a strong possibility. Now we're fairly certain that Dr. Petovich is alive, and is hidden a secret base of Colonel Vernon Katafi, a base called Outer Heaven. Haley's eyelids flickered, but he said nothing. No junior officer, not even one of the Snakemen, would dare to offer a comment to his commander unless asked to do so. But his pulse raced with excitement. Colonel Vernon Katafi, the single most feared terrorist on the planet, a psychopath bent on dominating the world. His nature so cruel as to verge on insanity. He was a total paranoid, his deeds those of a madman. Colonel Katafi was a dictator for life of his small but incredibly wealthy and savage desert country. Holy shit, dude, that's profiling. Noona. I feel like it's like a portmanteau of North Korea. Colonel Katafi was a dictator for life in a small but incredibly wealthy and savage desert country. Noona. That's not Korea. Alright, it's gotta be something else. Katafi's sole purpose in life was to bring the democratic nations to their knees. His terrorist actions were hideous, violent, and always unexpected. And always effective, because they struck fear into the hearts of world leaders. Katafi bombed civilian aircraft, killed innocent people, took non-combatants hostage, and tortured them without mercy. A mission against Katafi. Haley felt his heart swell with eagerness. Also, here was a chance to rescue his buddies. We lost Snakemen. Commander South continued, we now believe that we've located the secret base. Satellite reconnaissance of a distant jungle has revealed an unfamiliar complex of buildings, not in Noria, but somewhere else. I'm not authorized to share that information with you. It's got the highest possible secrecy classification. I can only tell you it's impossible to conceal a compound of that size and fortification in a desert country, so they went to the jungle instead. Computer scans of the satellite photographs show a huge base, larger than anything we've dealt with before, heavily protected and made up of a number of buildings, Haley. It's our belief that this compound is outer heaven, and Dr. Petovich is held prisoner somewhere in there. 2 weeks ago, Dr. Petovich's daughter, Ellen, disappeared. Witnesses tell us that she was snatched from her college campus as she was leaving her dorm. 3 masked men carrying automatic weapons jumped out of a long black limo with phony license plates, forced her inside, and took off at 80 miles per hour. We believe now that Dr. Petovich didn't give it in under torture. Now we're afraid that top-secret nuclear information may have taken from him because they're holding his only daughter prisoner, threatening to torture or kill her. But that's not all. There's something else, Haley. Something even more terrifying. Something that has us really worried. Our intelligence sources have hinted at something called Metal Gear. What Metal Gear is, and what it's scheduled to be launched against us, we don't know. We don't know what it looks like, whether it's airborne, how it's armed. We don't know how or even whether it can be disarmed. We presume it's controlled by some hidden supercomputer and that it carries a nuclear payload. But we can't be certain of any of this. Our information is too fragmented, too obscure. Hi, Kamja-chan. Welcome on in. All we're sure of is that Metal Gear is the most powerful and evil weapon ever devised. It can destroy a planet and every living thing on it. You gotta stop it before it's too late. Stand easy, Solid Snake. Justin Haley took a step to the side and locked his hand behind his back. All the attention was focused on Commander South's words. 3 weeks ago, we parachuted half of our Snakemen squad into the jungle, hoping they could infiltrate Katafi's hidden base and rescue Dr. Petovich, or at least bring us back useful data on Outer Heaven and Metal Gear. Not a single one of them has come back. They may all be dead. There is some chance that one or more Snakemen may be held as prisoners. Our information on that is very scanty, I'm sorry to say. We can only hope that at least some of our men are still alive. Haley's grin prickled in anger and revulsion at the thought of his friends. Good men, perhaps dead, or even worse, alive and under torture. Yet he said nothing. No flicker of emotion showed on his face, only the strong muscle in his jaw clenched tight. Understand me, Captain Haley, this will be your first solo mission. There's a very good chance it may be your last one. Beyond doubt, it's a suicide mission. We want you to locate Outer Heaven and search and destroy Metal Gear. Destroy Metal Gear. A solo mission against overwhelming odds. Justin Haley's neck, hairs prickled at the idea of it, and the excitement made the red blood rush through his veins. Dad about to feeling a little tickle in his throat, about to cough. I did just cough, actually. Chapter 2. Mission accepted. We want you to go in alone, continued Commander South, armed with nothing more than a compass. Jesus fucking Christ, holy shit. You try and break in fully armed, you'll be slowed down. You won't last 5 minutes. We want you to be a shadow, to slip in. You read me? Yes, sir. Every nerve in Bailey's mind and body were on red alert. Whatever weapons or equipment you need, you'll have to find on the spot or make do with them. Speed is what's important here. This mission has to be completed within hours of your arriving in Outer Heaven. What a thrill. Let's see. Commander South's stern face and steady gaze told Solid Snake as much as his words did, that his mission was of the utmost importance. Look for a transceiver radio. When you locate it, tune it into Foxhound Command's secret frequency. Then you'll be able to receive our radio transmissions. If you find any snake men alive and held as hostages, set them free. Rescue as many as you can. We'll pick them up later. Don't Scholastic books have a list of words at the end that tries to teach the kids the meaning of it? Please tell me the human rights and war crimes are on the list. Let me check. Wait, there's a Mega Man 2 book? Holy shit, that's awesome. You know, if we ever do another one of these streams, I'll read Mega Man 2. That sounds fucking hilarious to me. Let's see. No, there isn't. There isn't, unfortunately. Let's see. But be careful. Very careful, Captain Haley. Even when dealing with snake men, don't take anybody's word or anything at face value. Some of the snake men may have broken under torture and turned double agent. You won't know for sure which of them you can trust. As for Ellen, Dr. Petovich's daughter, we don't know whether she's alive or dead. If you find her alive, she may be of some use with her father. Try to rescue Dr. Petovich too, but if you can't, then you'll have to kill him. He's more valuable to the free world dead than alive in the dangerous hands of Colonel Katafi. Understood? Sir, said Solid Snake. Hi, Emperor Blackheart. What bedtime stories are these? This is, Metal Gear, Worlds of Power. This was an incentive by Scholastic to make kids read, because back in the 80s, a lot of old people thought that video games were worse than Satan, so they wrote a bunch of books, as shitty as they were, in order to get kids to read. And so this one is the book about Metal Gear. Metal Gear. Anyway. Sir, said Solid Snake. It was understood. In the game of terrorism, the stakes were high, and often fatal. The compass you'll be carrying is the latest technology. It'll transmit everything you say, and it contains a homing device. We'll be monitoring you constantly on the command center's computer screens. By means of the homing device in your compass, we'll be able to locate your position with pinpoint accuracy and target you to receive the radio transmissions that will give you all the up-to-date information we have. You won't be able to hear us with the compass, so you'll need to locate that transceiver as quickly as you can. As you penetrate the base, the radio broadcasts will help you as much as we can. You'll be contacted by our agent, codenamed Diana, on wavelength 12033. She'll be your control. She may sometimes identify herself as Boss Man. We can't tell you any more than that. Hi, CJ-kun. What's up, Nooners? Hey, welcome on in. Welcome. How are you today, buddy? How's everything going for you? Once again, Captain Haley only nodded without speaking. He understood fully the need for secrecy. Once you're in Other Heaven, you'll be completely on your own, continued Commander South. We can't tell you how the base is fortified or what traps Colonel Katafi and his forces might have set to detect your presence and kill you. You'll just have to elude all their traps, deal with their security forces, find our lost Snake Men and Dr. Petovich, locate which building houses Metal Gear, and somehow destroy the terrible weapon. It's a big job, Solid Snake. A very big job. Is this book just Snake Eater? So this is the original NES Metal Gear, right? This isn't the MSX version. This is the original one, right? On the NES. That was localized in America. I love that mission in Metal Gear where I'm armed with only my wits and my compass. We have to come back to this page and get that codec very quickly. It's the anti-piracy codec. All right, you gotta understand. It's the biggest mission one man has ever been sent on. 15 good Snake Men have already gone in, and not a single one has come back. We can't afford to lose the rest of the squadron. We're counting on you, and you alone. But the decision has to be yours. We can't order you in there to face almost certain death. Will you do it? Knowing the one chance in a million you have of coming out alive, do you still volunteer? Yes, sir. Good. You'll leave in an hour, said Commander South, nodding. We haven't a moment to spare, but first get rid of that uniform you're wearing. South scowled at the crisp olive-drab fatigue suit that covered Solid Snake's muscular body. We don't want you wearing or carrying anything that links you to your unit. This mission is top secret. We're issuing you a special camouflage suit. This mission, pick it up at the quartermaster's, put it on, and be back here at 1400 hours. No dog tags. Wear no identification of any kind. Take nothing with you that might connect you to Foxhound and the Snake Men with the exception of this compass. Is that clearly understood? Nothing. Yes, sir. Justin saluted snappily, turned on his heel, and marched out. I don't know, man. Being armed with nothing but a compass, it kind of smells, you know? Something about this stinks. As the door to the command center closed behind Haley, Commander South sighed deeply and rubbed his hand over his brow. You think he bought it? Asked General West softly. Haley? He'll do as he's ordered. He's the best of the Snake Men. I hate to lose him. He's highly trained and qualified. It galls me to have to sacrifice Solid Snake. But that's the way it has to be if we're to stop this madman Katafi and his new infernal deadly weapon, Metal Gear. Tell me about the Snake Men. Who are they? For a fraction of a second, South hesitated. The information on the squad was highly classified. Top secret, but West was his new second-in-command and therefore entitled to be briefed. Codenamed Snakemen is a unit that doesn't officially exist. You won't find them any roster on the Pentagon, but somewhere in Utah in a silo deep underground, a picked elite force of 30 young Marine officers has been undergoing intensive anti-terrorist training. It's a different kind of training from anything you'd ever imagine, West. In what way? General West asked curiously. In addition to being chosen for their courage, their intelligence and loyalty, for their incredible physical stamina and coordination, the Snakemen have been taught to survive with their bare hands. They've learned to create equipment and weapons out of nothing more than hostile terrain, any kind of terrain from a big city to deepest jungle or driest desert. At the same time, they've been getting top-secret training in 21st century weapons that the world believes are still only on the drawing boards. I'm proud to say that our Snakemen are trained to handle virtually anything. 30 young U.S. Marines. Ram Ranch really rock. 30 young U.S. Marines with their big, hard, throbbing cocks. Oh my god, they're unstoppable. Most important of all, this unit has been selected for their intelligence and swiftness of mind. The Snakemen have been trained to use their brains to outthink their opposition, to project themselves into the actual mindsets of the enemies, so that they can strike first, just like the snake for which they're named. Snakemen use their brains before their guns in any I'm sorry, it's fucking... to project themselves into the actual mindsets of the enemy. I'm gonna astrally project myself onto the enemy so I can get the upper hand. That's so fucking stupid. Snakemen use their brains before their guns in any situation, even when it threatens their own lives, yet they obey without thought or question the orders of a superior officer. In a world filled with warfare and terrorism, where space-age technology has made the destruction of Earth more than a possibility, the Snakemen have been chosen to be saviors. And Haley? As I said, Justin Haley is the best of the Snakemen. He'll be almost impossible to replace, but we have no choice. Metal Gear is the most serious threat to democracy we've ever been up against. It's a weapon of unlimited potential for destruction. The future of the free world depends on our finding it and destroying it. If you're going to use Solid Snake as a diversion device, then why did you give him the compass? Prompted West. It's a phony. It's just an ordinary government-issue compass. Nothing special about it. It's just something for Haley to hang on to. But we will definitely be tracking him. The real homing device is a microscopic electric unit sewed into the left sleeve of his new camouflage suit. That way Jennifer can pinpoint him for radio transmission. Jennifer? You told Haley Diana would be transmitting over the radio. Commander South chewed at his lip. Jennifer will also be transmitting, but Solid Snake won't actually pick up her signals because she'll be on a different frequency. You'll get Diana's instead. And she'll lead him around with false clues for as long as possible, so that we can buy a little time to set up the real raid. So Haley is being used as nothing more than a decoy? General West looked puzzled. Afraid so. Sending him in to create a diversion. A smokescreen. When the real attacked by the full forces of Foxhound Command can take Colonel Katafias by surprise, catch him off guard, defeat him, disarm Metal Gear, save as many of our Snakemen as are still alive, and rescue Dr. Petovich and his daughter. The commander smiled very sadly, and West could see the pain in his eyes. It was obvious that Commander South hated the deception that he'd forced to— Oh my god, holy shit, fuck. Oh, okay. Hi, Raiders. Welcome on in. Welcome. Oh boy. Welcome on in. What an absolute dad. What an absolute Chad. Raiders, welcome on in. Welcome. I'm Noona. If you got any post-stream rituals you gotta take care of, I'm Noona. I'm your more lame big girl's older sister from the rooftops. I play all sorts of retro games on this channel, and I talk about guns. I cook. We're just trying something today. We're having a little bit of fun. Lick the mic, nerd. What's the word? So back in the 80s, I'm here too. Welcome on in, Llama with Shades. Welcome on in, Sura, and, what is it, Skull Gamer and Noasi. Welcome on in. I really hated that. Yeah, that's fair, that's fair. So, if you're just joining us now, back in the 80s, there was this little company called Scholastic that published all sorts of games. Or actually, no, they published all sorts of books. With video games being on the rise, they wanted an incentive for kids to read books. Today we're reading Worlds of Power, Metal Gear, which was a novelization of the Nintendo Entertainment System video game called Metal Gear. I can't wait for the AK-50 V3. Me too, buddy. Me too. I feel like that'll be a lot of fun. What's the word? Metal Gear, so far, we have been introduced to Justin Haley, or Solid Snake, and Commander South, Lieutenant West. He's being sent on a suicide mission, so join me as I continue to read this absurdly stupid book. Hi Aces, welcome on in. Welcome, welcome. You found your way? Welcome, welcome. Let's see. The commander smiled very sadly, and West could see the pain. Oh, God damn it, I gotta go get my bottle. Hold on. Skeleton King, thank you for the follow. Thank you, thank you. I really appreciate that. That's really sweet of you. Welcome to the rooftop. Welcome to the family, everyone. For the Make Purity. Can't talk right now. I'm making piss. That probably sounds horrible. Holy shit, that's awful. Oh, this is also my first time using this ASMR mic on stream, so I think that's really funny. Cat25, thank you for the follow as well. Thank you, thank you. Welcome to the rooftop, welcome to the family. Alright, oh, thank you for the handgun dry fire redeem. Oh, I got a new handgun. I got a new handgun today. It's a CZ P10C, so I will be doing some dry fire. Gun is like 10 times louder than you. Yeah, that's fair. Getting to know your PP is very dope. Hey, it's a P10C, you know. It's got P in it, so, and the P stands for penis. The commander smiled very sadly, and Wes could see the pain in his eyes. It was obvious that Commander South hated the deception he had been forced to practice on his Marine captain, Justin Haley. Captain Haley, Solid Snake, is brave and loyal, and very fast on his feet. Most of all, he's logical and quick thinking. Of all the Snake men we have left, he'll buy us the most time. So, what you're saying is that Captain Haley is expendable, asked West. Captain South sighed hopelessly. Worse than that. He's disposable. Chapter 3. Getting in. Oh boy, getting in, fellas. We all know about that, don't we? The CZ sounded really good with the ASMR mic. I mean, it's a really comfortable handgun to use, honestly. I haven't shot it yet because I picked it up literally like 5 hours ago, but yeah, it's solid. I like the trigger reset on this. No, seriously, like, it's a very, very light trigger reset. That's really nice. The sights are also really simple too, but effective. High 15. Let's see. Chapter 3. Getting in. Justin Haley sat in the dark glider, his long legs cramped up almost to his chest, his seatbelt buckled across his shoulder and lap, the parachute strapped to his back. He'd been sitting like this for many hours. The glider was completely sealed. His little cockpit let in no light. Haley had no idea what direction the mother plane had carried him. All he knew for certain was that at some predetermined point, just before the jet came within radar range of outer heaven, the glider had been released. Soon it would lose enough altitude to come in low and escape enemy radar detection. Later, at some other preset time, the explosive bolts of the glider's cockpit cover would release and Haley would parachute out and down into the unknown. From there, he'd be on his own. The sudden sound of the cockpit bolts exploded startled Haley. But the instant his eject seat hurled him out of the glider, every one of his senses was on red alert. The chute opened without effort, unfurled like a giant silken sail, and carried Solid Snake silently to Earth. He snapped the lines free, and gathered the folds of the chute into a bundle he could carry. Now he looked around him, trying to see something, anything, but visibility was zero. Haley had landed in complete darkness, in the middle of what felt like and smelt like jungle. Trees and vines were all around him, and there was a heavy, warm mist rising from the jungle floor. Seeing anything at all was impossible. Down and safe. Sorry, let me do my better Solid Snake impression. Down and safe, he spoke into his compass, hoping that someone at Foxhound Command was online and monitoring him. All around him, Haley heard the sounds of the jungle, of wild beasts, night stalkers, and killer animals. It was too dark to travel. He'd have to wait until dawn. Climbing up into a nearby tree, Haley disturbed a sleeping tribe of little red monkeys who scattered through the branches, angrily chattering. Justin wrapped the parachute around him and settled into the crotch of the tree. Oh man, the tree, you'll see. Solid Snake's resting in the tree, pussy, my guy. Holy fuck, that's so stupid. He didn't know when he'd get the chance to rest again. 3 hours later, Haley awoke. Although the sun could barely pass the thick jungle canopy, enough light penetrated to rouse Haley, all of his senses on red alert. He looked around him in every direction, apart from the animal and bird sounds of early morning. There was nothing. Justin climbed down silently to the jungle floor and set out on his mission, the search for outer heaven. Some highly developed instinct, the result of his snakeman training, led his feet west. He noticed that there were fewer birds and monkeys in that direction, and fewer animals always spells the dangerous presence of man. Animals were far from stupid, and they could teach man a few tricks about survival in hostile terrain. So west Haley went, keeping low and as quiet as possible. As he moved without sound throughout the jungle, Justin Haley found himself suddenly in a patch of jungle growth that was fouled by a strong, sickening odor. His nose wrinkled. Solid Snake recognized the smell. Panther musk. It might be a useful weapon. Rubbing himself against the jungle plants, Haley let the heavy, musky cat smell seep into his suit of camos. What the fuck? What does that mean? Now he smelled exactly like a jungle killer. Other animals would keep out of his way unless, of course, he should bump into another male panther. Then he'd be in for the battle of his life. What does that mean? Panther musk? What? I'm sorry, what? I have to... Okay. I thought... I knew this was going to be a wild ride, but, like, I didn't expect fucking panther musk. Oh my god, that's so good. Holy shit. Solid Snake. Solid Snake smiled at the thought of himself in a catfight, although it would be no laughing matter as if it actually happened. This was an incentive to get kids to read, right? Not weird perverts. Yes, this was an incentive to get kids to read. That's why it's published by Scholastic. At last, after 3 more miles of trudging through dense, dank vegetation, Justin Haley saw light ahead. That could only mean a clearing, a man-made clearing. Trees had been cut down around a huge circle, several miles wide, and the leafy canopy had a large hole in it now. Sunlight poured down. Careful now. Haley crouched down and edged forward very slowly on the edge of the clearing. He stopped. Bingo. 3 military trucks with a strange insignia painted on their sides were parked in the clearing, 2 of them close together and the third one much further off. The insignia, a grinning, fanged reptile entwined around a broken, twisted tree. Something Haley didn't recognize. But it was menacing. It had a menacing quality that struck a familiar chord deep inside of him. It told him that Metal Gear wasn't far away. Beyond the trucks, about a half-mile away, surrounded by a high electrified fence, stood a vast compound of sealed-off buildings. They appeared to be made of cast concrete or heavy stone, and they had no visible windows. Solid Snake grinned. The satellite photos of Foxhound Command were on target. This massive and menacing compound must be outer heaven. Solid Snake sat back and spoke softly into his compass. I think I'm at the mission site. I have visual ID of potential target. Looks like outer heaven, guys. I'm glad that Snake talks so casually. He waited a minute, hoping for a reply, maybe a beep of some kind to let him know that his home base had him on the computer screen, but there was no return transmission. Was the monitoring system working, or had he been cut off from Foxhound Command? He'd have to locate a radio transceiver as soon as possible to find out. Justin stood up carefully, looking in every direction. As he did, the jungle silence was broken by a sudden ear-splitting chorus of snarls and growls. 6 barking killer dogs, giant half-starved Dobermans, burst out of one of the trucks. Their fangs were enormous, white and sharp. Their powerful jaws dripped foamy saliva. Snapping and howling, they raced towards Haley at top speed. Chapter 4. Inside the Gates. In his training with the Snakeman Squad, Justin had learned an entire language of commands to control killer dogs. He could get them to halt and to sit in German, Russian, Swahili, Chinese, Japanese, Arabic, and a dozen other tongues. But he had no idea what country he was in now, not even which continent. His canine vocabulary would be of no use here. He had only seconds to spare. No way could Solid Snake outrun this pack of trained attack dogs. Without a weapon, he couldn't even defend himself. Even if he managed to snatch up a branch from the jungle floor and use it as a club, Haley was no match for half a dozen frenzied attack dogs who lived only to tear out an intruder's throat. Suddenly, an idea struck him. It was a crazy idea, but could it be his only chance? Throwing himself to the ground, Haley raised himself on all fours like a giant cat, bracing himself as the dogs came closer. He could smell their hot, strong... This is starting to sound like a furry fanfiction. He could smell their hot, strong breath and see their insane rolling eyes. Most of all, there were those sharp, white fangs, less than a foot from his face. Now the killer dogs had almost reached him. They were only inches away from chewing him into raw hunks of bloody flesh. Solid Snake arched his back high. He snarled and growled, lowered in his throat, meanwhile staring hard at the lead dog with narrowed, angry eyes, drawing his upper lip back. Haley spat and yowled like a ferocious giant cat. Just as they heard Haley's unearthly sounds, the strong scent of the panther musk on his camouflage suit hit the dog's sensitive noses. Jungle predator, a male panther. Between the sounds and the smell, the Dobermans perceived Solid Snake as a big cat, 170 pounds of pure panther power, with incredibly strong teeth and claws sharp enough to rip out a dog into confetti. The Dobermans skidded to a halt, yelping. They turned tail and rushed away, almost knocking each other over in their eagerness to escape. What? What the fuck? Laughing under his breath, Justin pretended to be a panther. What? Laughing under his breath, Justin Haley watched them go. Then Haley's expression turned serious. He had some heavy work to do. Crouching low, he slipped silently, almost invisibly, across the clearing to the nearest truck. About 50 yards away, he kept his eyes peeled for guards, but saw none. It's like that MGS3 scene with Ocelot making them meow. No, this book directly inspired that scene. I want you to know that. Empty. The truck stood empty. No guards, no dogs. On the seat in the truck's cab, a pair of powerful rubber-cased field binoculars had been left. Solid Snake's hands closed around him in triumph. The binoculars were the first piece of equipment he'd need. Now, he was on his way. Should he commandeer the truck? No. The third truck, parked furthest from him, was closest to the gate of outer heaven. That was the most useful one. By the time he'd made his way over there, he'd know if any of the trucks were guarded. The second truck was, in fact, guarded. Inside the cab, a uniformed guard, a muscular man with heavy black mustache, was drowsing in the front seat. Haley came up behind him without a sound. The man only turned in his sleep, snoring. 2 swift rabbit punches from Solid Snake's strong, quick fist, and the sleeping guard was out like a light on a one-way ticket to dreamland. One down, but was the sleeping guard alone? Guards almost always come in pairs. A sudden noise behind him made Haley turn. Another uniformed guard, tall and heavy. Something in the guttural language Haley didn't understand, but Justin could see the guard's finger tightening on the trigger. the book loves big, strong, virile, muscular men. Yeah. Why is this constantly teetering on the age of the homo? Holy shit, so Solid Snake's... Yeah, his name is Justin Haley. And Big Boss's name is, what is it? Colonel Gaddafi? To be in line with Gaddafi, which is like a dictator. Back... on. Yeah. Muhammad Gaddafi. It was supposed to represent that at the time, which is literally very funny to me. Regardless. Oh wow, I didn't even make that. It's definitely like a product of its time, right? Lightning fast, Haley aimed a knee kick and a knee kick? Oh, as in he kicked his knee. Okay. Lightning fast, Haley aimed a knee kick and connected. A cry of pain, the big man went down, and an open-handed chop to his hairy neck finished him off for now. He lay still, not even twitching. Solid Snake looked around. The overpowering of the two guards had been so swift and silent that no alarm had been raised. Yet, but it could happen at any moment. Should he take the guard's Kalashnikov automatic weapon? You can call it an AK-47, my guy. No, Haley might encounter metal detectors on his way into Outer Heaven's compound. Better wait until I'm inside, he thought. But something else caught Justin Haley's eye. He knelt down at the side of the fallen guard. Attached to the big man's uniform by a pin was a plastic card bearing that same strange insignia with, oh, hi Synth, and encoded with a series of raised symbols. Haley recognized it immediately as a card key, and might activate at least one of the electronic doors and gates at the Metal Gear base. Imagine being a kid walking up to your teacher and asking how to pronounce Kalashnikov Avomat. Yeah, that's fine. The fallen man must be an officer, to be authorized to carry a key. This is a real piece of luck. Solid Snake pocketed the key and moved rapidly towards the third truck. The third truck was empty and unguarded. It was parked fairly close to the gate of the base. Justin Haley got behind the wheel and put the truck into low gear. The vehicle moved slowly towards the entrance of the base. Driving with one hand and feeling around on the front seat of the other, Solid Snake found a package of half-eaten rations. Evidently, the men must have recently had their breakfast. Cautiously, he took a nibble, tasted it, and made a face. Government-issued field rations are all the same, all over the world, he thought. They may be packaged densely with nutrition and vitamins, but they taste like a cross between cat food and an old rubber tire. Even so, he chewed the rations quickly and swallowed grimly. No telling when he'd get another meal. This so-called food would give him at least a quick energy boost. The teacher would look at the book to understand. Why does it talk about sweaty muscular? Good thing it's a book instead of the violent brain-rotting video games, my guy. Oh my god. Evidently. Hold on. Also in the seat was a pack of cigarettes. Haley reached for them, but drew his hand back. Could they be poisoned? His instincts told him that they could... What does that mean? Also in the seat were a pack of cigarettes. Haley reached for them, but drew his hand back. Could they be poisoned? His instincts told him that they could be a deadly trap, and even if the cigarettes contained no added poisons, they were deadly. What the fuck? It's the inner machination. Hi, oh shit, hey Ian, welcome on in, welcome. It's been so long. I've missed you. I'm sorry, it's like the paranoid machinations of a fucking schizophrenic, my guy. Holy shit. And even if the cigarettes contained no added poisons, they were deadly enough in themselves. He decided to leave them where they were, but he did take the matches. Matches could be used in many ways. That's not Solid Snake. No, that is not Solid Snake. It's only been 50 minutes. We're a quarter of the way through the book, I'm pretty sure. The truck was at the gate now. Solid Snake's... Oh, so hi Yoichi, welcome on in. The truck was at the gate now. Solid Snake slipped out the driver's seat and crouched down, keeping the vehicle between him and the gate, while his quick eyes darted around, checked for guards. 2 armed men were patrolling, but they were overconfident, talking to each other in that same strange language. They didn't expect to see Haley, so they didn't see Haley. He made himself into a shadow as he'd been trained. Holding his breath, Solid Snake waited until they passed along to the far side of the electrified fence. Then Haley duck-walked up to the gate, looking for the electronic lock. When he reached it, he stood up. This was it. Would the key card in his hand be the one that opened this locked gate? Would the alarm go off, bringing guards running from all sides? Only one way to find out. Haley pressed the embossed side of the card against the lock. For a split second, nothing happened. Then, a click. The gate opened, and Haley ran inside, swifter than a shadow and just as invisible. I don't know if you're copying, but I'm in, he whispered into the homing device. The compass he'd been carrying. Hey, oh no, 459. Thank you for the follow. Thank you. I appreciate it. Welcome to the family and welcome to the rooftop. I don't know if you're copying, but I'm in, he whispered into a homing device. The compass he'd been carrying. No radio, so no response. Once again, Justin wondered if anyone back at command could hear him. Maybe the compass was defective. Maybe the transmission channel was blocked or scrambled. Maybe. Who knew? The possibilities for a mess-up were almost endless. What he didn't know was that although the compass was really just a compass, he was transmitting after all through the hidden micro-radio that had been sewn into his sleeve back at the base. He's in, Commander South announced, his eyes on the large computer screen. Heaven help him, whispered General West. Thank God those cigarettes aren't poison, smokes the whole pack's Emily. Oh, I love Lucky Stripes. I love Camel cigarettes. Chapter 5, Level 1. Get it, guys? Because it's a video game. Hiding in the shadow of one of the empty trucks parked inside the compound, Solid Snake took a look around. What Haley was looking for was something that would give him an indication of where Metal Gear might be concealed. A hatch leading to an underground silo, maybe, or a building within the complex that was more remote and more fortified than the rest. Oh, Papa, I asked you for a shrink. I am sad. Hold on. Sorry.
Papa, I asked for you to shrink and you ignore me. I am sad.
Alright, I am now. Chibi Noona. Hi, I'm back. Hey fellas, how you guys doing? How's everything going? Hi Sar, welcome on in. Maybe also move the cover of this book. But he was handicapped by the fact that nobody in Foxhound Command knew what Metal Gear looked like. Was it something so big it needed a huge protected structure to house it? Or so small that it was only a deadly microchip, computer-triggered or radio-controlled? A barbed-wired fence around a building was no guarantee that Metal Gear was to be found inside. It could be anywhere in Outer Heaven, even in Colonel Vernon Catafy's shirt pocket. Dad, come back. Yeah? Hi, I'm here. Don't worry about it. All he had, the 30 young U.S. Marines. Hunts the floaty dots. What are you talking about? There's no floaty dots here. I don't know what you're talking about. 30 young U.S. Marines, Outer Heaven, under siege, under lockdown. 30 U.S. Marines with rock-hard throbbing cocks. 30 young U.S. Marines love their big, hard throbbing cocks. Hi. Likes picking up everything. Anyway. Shit. All he had to go on was the name Metal Gear. Somehow that's hinted to Haley that the weapon itself was large and needed a sizable building to itself. Crossing the field that separated the outside fence from the windowless complex of Outer Heaven, the young Marine captain spotted a door at the base of one of the buildings. Using that key card, Haley placed it into the slot of the door, face down. He could hear the latch click and he pushed gingerly at the door. It opened to his touch. I haven't seen the word gingerly in a very long time. He was inside now. On the first level of the first building, he pressed himself against the wall, becoming a shadow, and let his eyes do the walking. There were many doors along the hallways of Building 1, and all of them were guarded. Armed and uniformed terrorists, most of them carrying high-tech automatic weapons, were everywhere. Solid Snake knew that, at least at the start, he would have to avoid the guards wherever possible. Once he knew his way around, and once he located a weapon of his own, he'd be able to fight. For now, though, the only intelligent thing was to remain concealed. But for how long would Haley's concealment be safe or effective? There had to be surveillance devices everywhere in the compound. Haley scanned the walls and ceilings for the telltale red eye of a video camera, but didn't see one. That could mean the cameras were hidden from view. or it could mean that the other types of sensors might be operating. Heat seekers or motion detectors, for example. They were common devices, frequently used in securing premises. Those would certainly tip off the terrace later to the presence of an intruder. But if that were so, wouldn't the patrolling guards confuse the sensors? No. It had to be hidden video cameras linked to some giant console command and control board somewhere in the complex. I get that this is supposed to be like a super serious situation, but I swear to God that Solid Snake in this book is the most paranoid schizophrenic I've ever fucking seen. Holy shit. Solid Snake looked around for stairs leading to the upper floors, but he didn't see any. 2 elevators, east and west. According to Haley's compass, were all that... Oh, okay, you want me to be... Is it funny? Is it funny as funnier? As Big Noona? Okay. I'm having a not good time. Hehe. Alright, fellas, I'm back. Hi. How's everyone doing? How's everyone existing? Oh, V-Bridger. V-Bridger, calm down. Oh. V-Bridger? Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Alright, that's fine. That's okay. Anyway. 2 elevators, east and west, according to Halen's compass, were all that were available to Solid Snake to get him on the first level of another floor. Dad would never debase himself. The elevators were an added risk and posed a real danger of possible entrapment. Also risky were the corridors leading to the elevators. There were 3 of them. Haley took the one on to the left. He found himself facing 3 doors. He tried his keycard on the first door, but it didn't respond. Why not? The slot for the card was there. Why didn't the door open unless... For the first time, Solid Snake realized that there might be more than one key card. In fact, now he was certain of it. Each individual card opened only a small designated number of doors, and it would take more than one to open all the doors. How many keys would Justin Haley need to fully penetrate outer heaven? Although Justin didn't know it, there were actually 8 key cards that, used together, unlocked all the doors in the compound. It was an elaborate system in which the higher the soldier's rank, the more key cards he was entitled to carry. Only Colonel Vernon Katafi himself carried all 8 key cards. His 2 most trusted terrorist aides were entitled to 6 each. Where did Dots go? What are you talking about? Uchi, I think you're having a psychotic meltdown. Take your medication. I think you need to go to bed. The key card in Solid Snake's possession did manage to trip up the second lock and get the second door open. Haley slipped inside the room. It was a small room, little more than a closet, and it smelled bad. Like chemicals, the room gave the young Marine a bad feeling, and he wanted out of there. But first he forced himself to look around. Something was lying on a shelf near the door. Haley grabbed it and ducked back outside. The door clicked and shut behind him, locked again. He looked at the thing he was holding in his hand. It was a gas mask. Considering the chemical smells, the gas mask made perfect sense. It was probably used during experimentation in that room. It could be useful, but what Solid Snake really wanted was a weapon. But he decided to keep the gas mask and move down the corridor. Guards were still patrolling back and forth, up and down. Now they were coming Haley's way, their heavy boots making cadenced footsteps, sounded closer and closer, hugging the wall. Haley raced off in the opposite direction to the nearest side door of level 1. Quickly he tried his keycard, which he now thought of as keycard 1. It worked. The door opened, and Haley was back outside the building before the terrorist guards caught a glimpse of him. 3 military trucks were parked just outside the door. They were marked with the same strange insignia of the other vehicles he'd seen outside the compound. Haley ran swiftly towards them, hoping to find them unguarded. He was lucky. No terrorist guards were in sight. I mean, is it really just like terrorist guards? Aren't they just guards? How old is yeah, so he's supposed to be like a young Marine. He's part of like the special forces group called the Snake Men. And they're like the most elite of the Marine. They're all officers, right? But Solid Snake is the best Snake Men. It's fucking stupid, but it's hilarious thinking about it, right? Remember that this was also the first game too, right? There was no real Metal Gear chronology created at the time of writing, so like this is all kind of new. So this guy had nothing to really go off of, so that's why he named Snake Justin Haley. Let's see. Quickly but thoroughly, Justin began to search the trucks. He was looking for something, anything that could be useful in his mission. Luck was with him, and in his left-hand truck, his fingers closed around a familiar something, a pistol grip. His fingers closed around a familiar feeling, a pistol grip. Justin Haley had to bite his tongue to keep from letting out a yell of triumph. But his moment of triumph was brief. Haley had found a handgun, the Beretta. They misspelled Beretta. What? The Baretta M92F, a lightweight weapon, yet accurate and deadly. But there was still no clip of magazine. The gun was empty. Still, it was a beginning. Game hint. Get the rocket launcher on the secret floor of Building 2 after you have, earlier, what is it, 4 stars. Call Jennifer on frequency 12048. Oh shit. Ooh, spooky, mysterious even. Chapter 6, Freeing the Prisoners. Quickly, Solid Snake pocketed the empty Baretta and moved on the right-hand truck. He avoided going near the truck that was parked in the middle, convinced that it was a trap. He noticed a thin, almost invisible wire snaking from under the truck's chassis, and rightly presumed there was a detonator somewhere and explosives in the truck. But maybe the truck on the right hand had some clips of ammo. The Italian pistol, the Baretta, yeah, my favorite. He searched it carefully, but it yielded up nothing in the way of bullets. It did have a special steel pocket hidden in the door of the cab. Using all of his strength, Haley forced it open and found some anti-tank mines. Good, these might come in handy. Haley added the mines to the small but growing arsenal he was beginning to put together. With the mines and the Baretta, with the mines and the Baretta, Haley made his way back across the compound. He used his keycard to get back inside Building 1. Peering around a corner, Haley could see the guards approaching. He was close to the east elevator. It was his only chance. He dashed quickly to it and used his keycard to get the door open. The guards passed an instant after the elevator door closed. They saw nothing. Haley pressed the elevator door button to the 3rd floor. He decided to try and proceed systematically from top floor down. But when the door opened, Solid Snake caught a glimpse of something familiar. Little red eyes. There were infrared sensor cameras on the 3rd floor, unblinking, all-seeing little red eyes. The young Marine captain had to keep tight up against the walls to avoid the surveillance lenses. He figured that the entire complex must be monitored, some parts with cameras, other with heat-sensing or motion-sensing devices. How long would he be able to escape detection? Justin Haley suspected that this evil Colonel Katafi was using part of Building 1 as prison cells for the snake men he'd already captured. It was part of Haley's mission to set them free, but Commander South had warned Solid Snake that perhaps some of the snake men had turned double agent and shouldn't be trusted. Young Captain tied up against the wall. Shit, guys. Haley found that hard to believe. The men in his squad had all been courageous, highly trained, loyal, and patriotic. The Snake Men were the best, hand-picked. Their special forces training was the toughest in the world. Only the handful that came out of it in one piece were allowed to call themselves Snake Men. How could they change? What kind of torture could even a fiend like Colonel Katafi devise that would make a Snake Man betray his commander, his squad, his country? Because Solid Snake still only had one key card. He could go in through the doors it opened. The first few doors he tried failed to respond to the card, but the 4th floor opened when a key card was uncertain. In the center of the room, a prisoner was tied in a chair, moaning, nearly unconscious. The prisoner was Chuck Robinson, a snake man, a good friend. Haley should have stopped in the doorway to assess the situation for potentially lethal booby traps or explosives. All of his training had prepared him for caution above everything. But he couldn't help it. When he saw Chuck in the chair, he ran forward to his buddy's side. Chuck! Chuck, it's me, Haley! The man stirred and raised his head a little. Solid Snake? Justin, is that you? It's me, good buddy. Let me get those ropes off of you. Think you can stand up? Oh, I'll give it a try. But Robinson was not in any shape to stand. When the ropes came off, he fell to the floor in a heap. It's no good, Haley. Leave me here. Try to set some of the others free. They may be able to help you. Maybe if I rest a while. Solid Snake was reluctant to go, but there were over a dozen other prisoners if they were still alive. He had to find them and set them free. They were his snake men brothers, his comrade in arms. He couldn't leave them to die. Listen, Justin, this is very important. The heat panels. Don't try to tuck, Chuck. Chuck, just try to take it easy. No, you gotta listen to me. The heat panels. You can't get to Metal Gear without crossing the heat panels. They're terrible, burning. They burn. So in this novel, Solid Snake's name is Justin Haley. Chuck's delirious thought Solid Snake. He needs medical attention badly. Eat the rations. You've got to have plenty of rations if you want to make it through, or you'll die in the heat panels. Wait, oh no, that's Chuck saying that. Wait, no. So, okay. What is it? Is it really, or did the writer make it up? So, remember the time period in which this was written. This was the very first Metal Gear released back in the 80s. The Metal Gear 1 was pretty light on plot. It didn't have a lot of the overall canonicity and canology that, like, Metal Gear nowadays has. So, what ended up happening was, because this writer was trying to make a book to get kids to read, and based it off of a game called Metal Gear, what ended up happening was he ended up just making up a lot of the background as he went along in order to make sure that it sort of fit with the game's general theme. And it kind of makes sense, right? So, like, Justin said, I mean, it's funny, right? His name is Justin Haley, right? The big boss's name is Colonel Vernon Katafi, after, Muammar Gaddafi, the dictator, right? So, it's a period of the 80s. It's a period piece from the 80s, which is very funny. Eat the rations. You've got to have plenty of rations if you want to make it through, or you'll die in the heat panels. Chuck kept mumbling the same words over and over, his voice weak, but his words heavy with urgency. Right, good buddy. Will do, said Solid Snake softly. Listen, Chuck, I'm gonna leave the door unlocked for you. Try to make it out of here. If you can't, I'll come back and get you after I finish with Metal Gear. Is that a go? Chuck nodded warily. But the heat panels, he said again. Listen to me. You've got to raise your own body temperature if you want to survive. You gotta eat. I hear you, Chuck. Take care, Solid Snake. Haley nodded grimly. I'll take care, he promised. Chuck wanted to eat all the rations. The key card opened other doors in which he found several more. Keep going, Dad. It's so fucking stupid. Oh my god. The keycard opened other doors in which he'd found several more Snakemen prisoners. All of them had been tortured, and several of them were unable to speak. It almost broke Justin Haley's heart to see his friends in such a condition. He set the men free, promising to return and get them all out to safety once his mission was completed. So far, none of the rooms had contained any ammunition for his Baretta. He needed weapons to penetrate their inner defenses of outer heaven. He had to keep looking. He keeps saying penetrate defenses. Like, look, man, with all the homoeroticism, I'm starting to believe that there is like some barely disguised fetish written into this. In one of the rooms on level 3, Solid Snake had sensed something seeping from under the door. The odor, bitter, stinging, was unmistakable to anyone in Haley's training. Poison gas. Haley put on the gas mask. Should he avoid this room or go into it? His sense of survival told him to stay clear of the poisonous gas, but his logic told him something different. Why would the terrorists bother to gas the room unless they had something of vital importance hidden here? Solid Snake had to take the risk. Using his keycard, he got the door open. It was a large room, and at first it appeared to be empty, but as Solid Snake crossed it wearing his gas mask, the floor suddenly tilted up, sending him lurching backwards, barely able to keep his balance. There was a terrible rumbling sound growing louder and louder. Through the fog of poison gas that filled the room, Solid Snake found it difficult to make out what was happening. Then he saw it. The deadly trap. A huge rolling device, a giant steel pin 8 foot long and weighing 3,000 pounds, heavy enough to crush a man to death, detached itself from the wall and came rolling across the sloped floor, coming at him at top speed. Unless it was stopped, in only a few seconds, it would smash the life out of Solid Snake. What is it? Avoid surveillance cameras by staying next to the walls. Thank you, video game. Chapter 7. The Terrorist's Face. The deadly roller came thundering closer. The floor tilted crazily. Solid Snake staggered and found it impossible to stay on his feet. The pin was moving more rapidly, gaining momentum with every second that passed. It was moving a lot faster than Haley, and soon it would be on top of him. Solid Snake thought fast. Smashed the life out of Solid. Yoichi, you know what? I can 100% see that being a thing, because FX9 was like, the photograph of him from like the 80s was that like he's a fucking he's like an old dude, right? He's like an old fucking guy. Anyway, crouching down to the floor, Haley waited and watched as the pin got closer. At the precise moment that it reached him, Solid Snake gave a mighty leap upward and threw himself over the pin, rolling clear on the opposite side. The pin thundered onward, smashing into the far wall. The floor, whose tilt was electronically clued in to the rolling of the steel monster, became level again. As the floor straightened out, Haley scrambled to his feet, shaky but unhurt. Before he could catch his breath, 3 terrorist guards came rushing out of concealment, weapons drawn. Solid Snake still had no ammunition for his handgun, and the mines were useless in the situation. All he could do was run. He was near the door, so he raced for it on the double. Without looking back, he pulled it and shut it behind him. Using keycard 1 to lock it, the guards were shut inside. Without delay, Solid Snake used his keycard on the next room, and the door swung open. Cautiously, he entered. The room at first appeared to be completely empty. No guards, no lethal devices. In the center of the floor stood only a table, with a computer and some field rations on it. Were the rations pointed? Why is that his first thought? Is this guy saying something? Yes, he is. Why is everything that he finds like, is it poisoned? Is it poisoned? Chad, is it poisoned? I can't tell. That's so fucking stupid, oh my god. Were the rations poisoned? Haley hoped not, because he knew he'd have to take the chance anyway. Chuck's words came back through to him. You've got to have plenty of rations if you want to make it to the heat panels. Maybe Chuck hadn't been delirious after all. Solid Snake picked up the rations and sniffed at them. They smelled terrible, but all field rations smelled terrible. Justin and Haley ate some and pocketed the rest. Then he turned his attention to the computer on the table. It sat there, switched off, silently mocking and defying him. What was its purpose? What information did it hold? Solid Snake reached across the table and turned the computer on. At once, the screen lit up and showed an enemy terrorist's face. It was the face of Colonel Vernon Katafi. Before Haley had time to think, the face on the computer screen began to decompose right before his eyes. The picture turned into blocks, and the blocks were quickly scrambled into the face was an unrecognizable jumble. A small clock appeared on the screen, ticking the seconds down from 20 to 19 to 18. Haley realized that there was a crucial identification test. The computer thought he was a terrorist and was putting him through a special run to make certain of his identity. Each person used this computer screen only had 20 seconds to unscramble the face. The guards were trained in this exercise, but Haley was not. What the fuck? What is that? What kind of identification test? It's the stupidest captcha. It's a fucking Mario Party. It's a fucking Mario Party minigame. You have 20 seconds to solve this or you're gonna get shot. Oh my god. Quickly, Solid Snake began to strike the keys at almost random, while the seconds ticked down one by one. On the screen, a couple of pieces fell into place, and Haley worked faster, but at the same time with more focus. The trick was to pay as little attention as possible to the clock, counting down from 12 to 11 to 10 to 9. Just get the job done. 5, 4. Haley had only 3 pieces of face left to go, but one piece he'd unscrambled before was in the wrong place and was blocking the right piece. Deep breath. Do it. Just do it. 3, 2. The final piece clicked into a place a nanosecond before the countdown stopped. There on the screen, the terrorist's face had been reassembled. Solid Snake heard a click. From a slot on the side of the computer came a small sound, and a keycard slid out. His reward for getting it right? A keycard. The computer had fallen for his trick. He compared it to the first keycard he had found and noticed that there was a pattern to the bumps of the card. With 2 cards in hand, it was easy to see that the patterns was a numbering system. This is card 2. Hi, Sachiko. Welcome on in. Welcome. The bumps were carefully laid out into sections. He could tell that there were 8 cards in all. Now he had more rations and another precious keycard. The next room couldn't be opened with keycard 1, but the door did open at the press of keycard 2. Inside there was another bound snake man, prisoner, Jim Tibbet. Solid Snake, thank God you're here. I've just about given up hope. I have a message for you from Diana, she says. What is it? She says, Gray Fox infiltrated the enemy several days ago. They've captured him, but he's alive. Gray Fox was the squad leader of the Snake Men. Could Justin Haley rely on the truth of that message? How could Diana have gotten through to Jim, and when? Before he was captured? Could he trust Tibet? Himalayan? Or was this some kind of lying trick to divert Silent Snake from his main objective? Metal Gear. Haley looked deep into Snake Man Jim's eyes, searching for the truth. It seemed to him that he saw it there. But if he were wrong, if Jim Tibbet was lying and Haley believed him, the mistake could easily prove fatal. Yet, he really wanted to believe that Gray Fox was still alive. What should he decide? Solid Snake was torn between his desire to set his friends free and get them to safety, and his mission? To find Metal Gear, whether and whatever it was, and destroy it. It was a hard choice, but the mission came above everything. Those were his orders. He was here, in outer heaven, to obey them. If on the way he found Gray Fox alive, that would be the icing on the cake, but he couldn't stop to look for him. Yet, he resolved in his heart to keep his eyes open for Gray Fox, and to question every prisoner he set free about the squad leader. If anyone could help him on this mission, it was Gray Fox. I'll come back for you as soon as I can, Haley promised Tibbet. Hang in there, Jim. Rest up. The door's unlocked now, so be careful. I will, Jim replied, weakly shaking Justin's hand. You be careful, too. In the next room, opened by keycard 2, Haley was hit by odorless poison gas as soon as the door opened. He felt his lungs choking with pain. Only with seconds to spare, he got his gas mask on. Something caught his eye. Even through the gas, taped to the baseboard on the far wall, there were 3 clips of ammunition for the Barretta. Bullets. Now he felt like a combat marine again. Now, Solid Snake was armed. In the same room, he found a small package containing the silencer for this Barretta. That made Solid Snake grin, and he screwed the silencer onto the end of the barrel. The next space he entered was a small armory, a supplementary weapon stash. On a high shelf, Justin Haley located a grenade launcher and a cache of grenades. This find slowed him down somewhat, but it was too important to leave behind. Solid Snake strapped the grenade launcher onto his back and slung a heavy bandolier of grenades over his chest. Now, looked like a fighting man. To get through the maze, go left 2 screens. Thank you for the game hit video book. Chapter 8. Captured. Hello? Whispered Haley, urgently into his compass. Hello? Control, do you copy? Was there anyone on his side listening to him, monitoring his whereabouts? Haley didn't know. Doggedly, Solid Snake kept moving forward, from one room to another. He hoped to find Gray Fox, but his first priority was to locate a transceiver radio as soon as he could find. Time was crunching Justin Haley. He needed to receive his radio message from Control to guide further into the depths of outer heaven. Gotta hurry the plot along. Yeah, they're speedrunning this shit, dude. This is the any % run. Basically, the author just clipped Solid Snake to the wall so he could get the grenade launcher. It's an early game skip, you know? That being said, let's see. Time was crunching Justin Haley. He needed to receive the radio message from Control to guide him further into the depths of outer heaven, and he had to have those radio transmissions soon. Haley was feeling isolated, as though he'd been completely cut off from Fox out command. He didn't even know if his homing device, the compass, was operational. Was the base receiving him? Were they tracking him? Did they even know he was still alive? Taking the elevator down to the first floor, Solid Snake made up his mind to try keycard 2 to open those locked doors that hadn't responded to him when he only had keycard 1. To locate Metal Gear, he would need a lot more clues. When we get to the 15-page long, heavy, sweaty scene between Justin and Gray Fox, Haley emerged from the elevator in the part of the level that was used as a storehouse. It was piled high with evenly stacked rows of heavenly wooden crates, each one large enough to house a small truck or an all-terrain vehicle. Making his way through the stacked-up wooden crates, which were painted with Outer Heaven insignia, Justin Haley narrowly avoided a deadly trapdoor between 2 of them, but as he did, a nail protruding from one of the crates caught his sleeve and yanked at his arm. The compass went flying out of Solid Snake's hand, down into the well of the trapdoor and out of sight. Solid Snake was stunned. He believed that the compass was his actual homing device, sending out a signal that only Foxhound Command could receive. He didn't know that the real homing device was sewn into the sleeve of his camouflage suit, Now Justin thought the loss of his compass had cut him off totally from Foxhound Command. 07's in the chat for the compass. He'd have to act completely on his own, without any thought of backup help from the U.S. Marines or Commander South. But perhaps when he found the radio, Diana might be able to guide him. Solid Snake's search for the radio doubled in intensity, and there were still more snake men to set free. Some of them might have important clues for him. Haley moved swiftly, silently, cautiously from room to room. In one of the key one rooms, a prisoner named Frank Witkowski gave Justin Haley an important clue. Ray Fox is hidden up in a hidden solitary cell room. The best way to get to the hidden cell is to let the enemy capture you on purpose. Let the terrorists capture him. Actually surrender to the enemy in order to infiltrate more deeply. It might be a workable plan. Could be this guy Witkowski be lying to trick him? Haley freed the prisoner and, thinking hard, set off again by himself. Looking through a door, Haley spotted 3 trucks parked in a row near the outside wall. Solid Snake had been lucky with trucks so far, locating weapons, rations, and necessary equipment in them. Could he get lucky again? Yes, and one of the trucks was an Ingram Mac 2 submachine. Mac 2? Do you mean Mac 11? Mac 2 or Mac 11? I can't tell if this is supposed to be a 2 or this is Roman numeral 2, right? This is Roman numeral 2. That's I think it's supposed to be a Mac 11. Yes, in one of the trucks was an Ingram Mac 11 submachine gun with a full clip, with the Barretta, and now with the lightweight, rapid-firing automatic Mac 11. Not to mention the grenade launcher, the grenades, and the anti-tank mines. Solid Snake was becoming a walking arsenal, ready for any fight. But he was also a pretty heavy load for a one fighting man to carry. Maybe he'd better make time if he didn't have to walk or run everywhere. For example, if he had wheels. Haley decided to commandeer one of the trucks. It was at that very moment that Justin Haley's luck ran out. As he climbed into the cab of the truck, a squad of terrorists appeared as if out of nowhere. Suddenly, Solid Snake was surrounded on all sides. There were guards everywhere, each man with an automatic weapon aimed straight at his chest. There were no options left. There was nothing to do but surrender. Haley put up his hands and allowed the terrorists to take him quietly. Captured, Solid Snake was a prisoner. Did this mean that his mission was at an end, a failure? Had he let his corps down, betrayed the Snakemen squad, Commander South, his country, and the free world? Haley suddenly recalled the words of Frank Witkowski, the last prisoner he'd freed. The best way to get to the hidden cell is to let the enemy capture you on purpose. Could that Snake Man be right? Solid Snake was about to find out. Oh no, the Snake is surrounded by all these strong, handsome guards. Oh no! Roughly, the guards stripped Haley. Oh wow, whoa, calm down. Roughly, the guards stripped Haley of his bandolier grenades, the gas mask, the Barretta, the Mac 2, the anti-tank mines, the ammo, the grenade launcher, the binoculars, the rations. They confiscated all of Solid Snake's weapons and equipment, or at least they thought they did. But there is one crucial acceptance. Katafi's men missed something, because the terrorists could not conceive Solid Snake having keycards in his possession, because they believed that he'd brought his own weapons into outer heaven with him, and because the keycards were no longer larger or thicker than an American Express card. The guards didn't find them when they frisked him for his weapons. The card keys were still safe, deep down in the pocket of Solid Snake's camos. Now that he was a prisoner, what were the odds against his meeting Ray Fox? Witkowski had told him that the terrorists had the squad leader hidden away somewhere in solitary confinement. They didn't steal his cigarettes? Oh no. The poisonous cigarettes? The guards spun Justin Haley around. Black, greasy blindfold was tied tightly around his eyes. He could see nothing, prodding Solid Snake along painfully with their weapons. They marched him, stumbling inside a building and down a long corridor. They turned so many corners that Haley couldn't hold on to his sense of orientation. He had no idea where they were taking him. At last they reached a stopping point. The terrorists yanked cruelly at Solid Snake's arms to get him to stop. Justin Haley heard a cell door open. He was pushed roughly inside, falling to the hard stone floor. The triumphant and mocking way the guards were laughing and sneering had told Haley plainly that this interrogation would be next, and very soon. The guards didn't even bother to tie Justin up, another indication that they expected to be back for him within the hour. The door clanged shut, reaching behind him. Solid Snake struggled with a thick knot of his blindfold until he got it off. The cell was so dimly lit that it was hard to make out anything except shadows, but in a few seconds, Haley's eyes had adjusted to the lack of light, and he looked around him. There's a chair in the corner, which tied a single prisoner, barely conscious. He was bound and gagged. Justin Haley went to the prisoner. He removed the gag and untied the ropes that were cutting sharply into the man's wrists. Gently, he lifted his head to look at his face. The man's features were so swollen as to be unrecognizable. "Can you talk?" Justin whispered. "It's me, Haley." "Solid Snake," the man whispered back through cracked lips. "So they sent you? I'm Gray Fox." The prisoner's voice faltered, and his words became so faint that Haley had to press against his ear against the squad leader's lips to see. I'm sorry, what? The prisoner's voice faltered, and his words became so faint that Haley had to press his ear against the squad leader's lips to hear what he said next. "Listen, carefully. We have very little time. The enemy is constructing the final weapon. Metal Gear." "How close are they to having it finished?" demanded Justin. "Very closely. Perhaps less than an hour away." Gray Fox's words came slowly and painfully. "Hang on, Gray Fox," urged Solid Snake. "Don't leave me now. I need you. Can you describe Metal Gear? How does it work? Is it large? Small?" "No. None of the Snake Men have seen it. Do you know what building it's in?" No, it's very well hidden. You're gonna need a map." "Map? What map?" This is the first time that Haley had heard about a map to Metal Gear. "Where will I find this map?" The squad leader tried to raise his head, but couldn't. I don't know. I only know there's one." "What about Dr. Petovich?" Solid Snake asked. "Have you any clue to where he might be holding him?" Gray Fox shook his head painfully. "He could be anywhere. Katafi keeps moving him around." "And Ellen, his daughter? Is she here too?" "Yes. Katafi's men kidnapped her in order to make Dr. Petovich talk." "Didn't know that." Yeah, Gray Fox casually goes, I need you, Justin. It's very close." "Didn't know that." It was obvious that Gray Fox is fading quickly. He needed a doctor. Haley felt the urgency of the situation tightening around him. This was the leader of his squad. He couldn't just let him die. He had to rescue Gray Fox. "Solid Snake, listen. There's not much time. Get us out of here before they come back for us." "I'll try," promised Haley. "But with what? His bare hands? Hurt me, Snake! Hurt me more!" Chapter 9. The Escape. Haley's hands were bare of weapons or equipment, and time was running out. The clock of doom was already ticking. Katafi's terrorists would be back for them very soon, and that would mean certain death for the two Snake Men and the total failure of the Outer Heaven mission. What was Haley to do? His rigorous Snake Men training had taught Solid Snake ways in which he could create whatever he needed from his immediate environment. He looked around him. He was there into this bare cell that he could use. Haley concentrated, visualizing possible escape scenarios. One piece of luck gave Haley the slightest edge, along with the 2 key cards. The terrorists had missed the little book of matches that Justin had found in the truck. Now, if Solid Snake was careful with them, they would at least have some illumination in this dark cell. And maybe the matches would even be more useful than just shedding light, because although the cell was sealed tightly, Haley thought he could feel the merest whisper of cold air seeping in from outside. Somewhere there must be a crack in the cell wall. Lighting a match, he held it up as long as he could before he burned his fingers. Yes. There was a thin trickle of cold air coming in from somewhere outside the cell. The flame was flickering only in one direction. Haley lit up another match, and held this one somewhat lower down, next to the wall. The little match head of fire told him that the air was flowing from that direction. With the third match burning, Solid Snake got down on his hands and knees and looked intently. Oh no. He had to find the airflow before he used the book of matches up completely. Before the match burned out, Haley's hands found the small gust of air. His eyes detected the beginnings of a crack in the wall, very close to the floor. He got down on his stomach, as close to the wall as he could, and inspected, feeling the wall carefully with his fingers. Yes, there was a fault in the masonry, a tiny crack in the wall, just beginning to break through to the other side. Now, if only he could locate the weakest point in the fault. Solid Snake's fingers felt around until he touched the softest part. He felt the masonry beginning to crumble a little under his touch. Satisfied, Justin Haley sat back on his haunches. "Hold tight, Gray Fox," he said. "Keep it together. Don't go dying on me now. I think maybe I see a way for us to get out of here." Holy shit, that's so fucking based. God damn. That's so fucking good. Holy shit. Reaching over to where he dropped his blindfold, when he had torn it off, Solid Snake picked it up and folded the greasy cloth into three thicknesses? What does that even mean? I'm sorry, does anybody see this? Solid Snake picked it up and folded the greasy cloth into three thicknesses. What does that mean? Am I fucking stupid? Alright. He wrapped the wad tightly around the knuckles of his right hand and made a strong fist. He stood up and squared his shoulders. Then, taking a deep breath and letting it out again in a tiger's roar, Haley ran towards the wall at top speed, and at the last moment he dropped down and aimed a karate punch with his wrapped fist straight at the center of the crack in the masonry, in the very heart of its weakest spot. Instantly, the bricks and motor gave way, and a hole opened the cell wall. Scratching with his bare hands, Haley enlarged the hole. He had to work fast. The terrorists would be back any moment now. At last, the hole was large enough for a man to pass through. Gently, Justin Haley lifted the weak Gray Fox in his arms, as though the big man were a child, and carried him to the hole, pushing him through to the other side of the cell wall. Then Solid Snake squeezed through the hole and stood up, brushing motor and brick dust off of his camos. Now they were free. But Gray Fox was too weak to stand, and Solid Snake was without a weapon. He would have to stash his squad leader in some relatively safe place, and make an effort to recapture his weapons and other gear, or else find new ones. He had already lost valuable time. Gray Fox, he said he had less than an hour to get to Metal Gear and disarm it. Because he had been brought there blindfolded, and because his cell had been so well hidden, Haley had no idea what part of outer heaven they were in now. Would either of his keycards work here? There was a small door. Snake is trained in fine dining. There was a small door behind one of the columns that held up the ceiling, and Haley tried card-keyed one on the lock. No go. The lock wouldn't budge. Keycard 2. He heard a click. Alright. This one got the door open. The room was empty. No prisoners. No equipment. It's probable that Gray Fox would be as safe here as anywhere else in the compound. "I'll try to be back for you as soon as I can," Haley told his squad leader. "Try to stay alive, Gray Fox. We'll get through this thing." There is no apostrophe here. Marks off for wrong grammar. "You're a good man, Solid Snake," Gray Fox barely whispered. "If anyone can succeed in this mission, it's you." The squad leader reached inside of a pocket. "One last thing," he said. "Take these goggles. They're infrared. There are laser traps on some of the floors. You can see them with these goggles." Solid Snake left Gray Fox lying on the floor of the room and closed the door behind him, making a mental note of the layout so he could find his squad leader later. If there was a later. Without even knowing which level he was on or in what building, Justin Haley resumed his search of outer heaven and still looking for the radio, for a weapon, and for clues for Metal Gear. Chapter 10. The Shotgunner. The next room Solid Snake had entered had nothing in it. It appeared to be just an empty space, but Justin Haley had a strange feeling about this place. Something was in here. He was sure of it. He did a quick search, but came up with nothing. Even so, all his instincts told him that something of importance should be hidden here. He looked around, this time a little more thoroughly, but once again he found nothing. Perhaps his Snake Man instincts were wrong this time. But he was wasting precious minutes. By now the terrorists would have returned to get Solid Snake and Gray Fox. Why do they keep calling him by his full name? I don't fucking know, man. It's the 80s. Who fucking knows? They would have found him missing. They'd be searching every inch of outer heaven. Reluctantly, Haley had turned to leave, to look elsewhere, but there it was. Something really small caught Solid Snake's sharp, trained eye. High up in the wall, close to the ceiling, a thin piece of plastic, no bigger than a credit card. A brief touch told him that it was key card 3. The young Marine captain retrieved it. He now had 3 out of the 8 necessary cards. Why were the keys just lying about? Haley was sure that it was a sign of the maniac Katafi's arrogance, building a fortress and then leaving the keys in plain sight. With key card 3 in his pocket, Haley felt a sense of elation. He was on his way again, locking the door behind him. He looked around to see where he should go next. One door on the far wall stood out. It was bigger than the others, big enough to drive a vehicle through. Trucks and tanks, jeeps, and other rolling stock were parked all around outer heaven, both indoors and out. Could this room be some sort of armory or supply depot? Because it's meant for kids, and clearly kids. Yeah, right. If it was, it must certainly be guarded. Solid Snake would have to be even more cautious than usual. He crept up silently to the door and applied keycard 3 to the lock and heard the click. In the next room, which was a supply depot, a huge man, whom Haley recognized from his criminal file as the Shotgunner, was keeping watch over a large cache of weapons, including Solid Snake's own equipment. The terrorists had brought in the weapons to the Central Armory for storage after they captured Justin Haley. If there was ever one big, ugly monster, it was the Shotgunner. He was armed to the teeth, ready to kill, and he loved his work. Creeping silent as a shadow, staying close to the wall to avoid detection, Solid Snake entered the armory. He saw the giant shape of the Shotgunner looming in the center of the room, watchful, waiting for an intruder so that he could let fly with a deadly rain of bullets. The guard's large hands was the most powerful shotgun that Haley had ever seen. One blast from that gun could tear a gaping hole in the wall of a steel building. I'm sorry, what? What? In the guard's large hand was the most powerful shotgun that Haley had ever seen. One blast from the gun could tear a gaping hole in the wall of a steel building. Those large hands, the shotgunner that could tear a gaping hole of a steel building. Holy shit. Man. Oh my god. Fucking shit. Oh my god, that's hilarious. Anyway. If this wasn't Scholastic, I would anticipate Snake to get viciously pounded by this guy. Maybe, right? You know what's really funny too? This guy's apparent criminal record is so associated with shotguns. Like that's what he's known for. Just like just a shotgun, right? Like how does it say like it's the most what makes it the most powerful shotgun that Solid Snake has ever seen? Why? Is it like a KS-23? Like what even? Dad, I'm starting to think that this book is kind of inappropriate for a bedtime story. No, you're old enough. All around him, Haley saw piles of weapons, guns, and explosives of all kinds. But getting them into his hands would be a noisy business. Before Solid Snake could even shoulder a weapon, the shotgunner would have heard him and blown him to the moon. Yeah, blown him to the moon, huh? All around him, Haley saw piles of weapons, guns, and explosives of all kinds. But getting them into his hands would be... Oh, wait, hold on. Wait a minute. There, under the nose of the shotgunner, was a pile of gear on the floor. Justin Haley recognized it. It was his own, the Barretta with its silencer, the Ingram Mac 2, his bandolier, the gas mask, all of it, even his rations. Now, if he could only get to it, using the oldest trick in the book, the ventriloquist skill of throwing his voice in the opposite direction. I'm sorry, what? Jesus fucking Christ. Using the oldest trick in the book, the ventriloquist skill of throwing his voice in an opposite direction, Solid Snake made a small sound come from the opposite side of the room. For a split second, the shotgunner turned his head only just long enough for Haley to race past him and grab up his weapons cache. Solid Snake hoped that his hands would fall first on the pistol, because the pistol had a silencer. Shit, what the fuck is this garbage? Oh my god, that's so fucking funny. But he didn't have time to pick or choose, and as luck would have it, the first weapon into his hand was the Mac 2. The shotgunner heard him and growled in his throat in a deep animal sound. sound. An enraged threat, he lifted his mighty shotgun and sighted down the barrel at Haley. There wasn't a second to spare. Solid Snake didn't even have time to reach for the trigger of his gun. Instead, he whirled and swung the Mac-2 like a baseball bat, letting the shotgunner have it on the side of the head. Wait, how do you swing a Mac-11? How do you swing a Mac-11 like a baseball bat? What? What does that even mean? He heard the angry growl become a grunt and saw the shotgunner topple over from the force of the blow and the mighty gun fall from the big hands. Solid Snake knew that the noise of the struggle would have to get the terrace guards down on him before he could blink an eye. He had to get out of there, and fast. But as he was running for the back door, loaded down with his gear, he noticed some equipment among the supplies that might prove very useful. A suit of body armor and a bomb blast suit. Grabbing him, Haley ran for his life out the back door. He wasn't aware of it yet, but Haley was about to come face to face with a new hazard. The dreaded heat panels. Game hint. Watch out for the pitfalls between the wood crates? Wood crates. Chapter 11. The heat panels. This book is so fucking stupid. Holy shit. Dude, I should read more of these on stream. Solid Snake looked around him. He was outside the second building of the Outer Heaven complex. In the shadow of a high wall, his weapons were heavy. He had to get inside and stash them somewhere safe. He'd never find Metal Gear dragging all this heavy equipment around with him. About 20 yards away, almost against the wall of the building, Solid Snake saw more trucks, 3 of them, at once. He only spotted that the middle one was a trap. Solid Snake was beginning to be an expert in the way the terrorists thought, and he avoided it. The first truck was empty, but the last truck on the end held a treasure. Sitting in the glove compartment was keycard 4. Suddenly, Solid Snake wasn't tired anymore. He was wired, bursting with energy. Grabbing the keycard, he ran for the building and entered through a side door. The layout of Building 2 was not unlike that of the first building of the Outer Heaven complex. There were no stairs evident, just 2 elevators, east and west. No marking on any of the doors in the corners of the vast first level. Painted on the floor was that same strange insignia. Minutes were ticking by quickly. Gray Fox had told Haley that Metal Gear was almost completed. Speed was essential, now more than ever. Solid Snake realized he needed to place a place to stash the arsenal he was carrying. It would just slow him down. But where was a safe hiding place? He thought about it for a moment, and it came to him. The best place to stash equipment is in a room already filled with equipment. A room locked by one of the 4 card keys Haley already had. If he could find a place like that, unguarded, a place he could come back to. Haley found an unlocked room filled with food and stuffed with Haley found an unlocked room filled with food and stuffed his pocket full of rations. He made certain that he had all 4 keycards on him and moved silently to a locked door. Very cautiously, on the lookout for traps, he moved inside. It was exactly the setup Solid Snake had hoped for. Weapons and gear lined the shelves of the room. The equipment was out of date and appeared to be unguarded. It looked like stuff nobody would want to come to check on. Nobody would bother or notice Solid Snake's stash. He could retrieve it as it needed. Haley began to unfasten his bandoliers, but please, make it more the heat panel Snake. Let's see. Haley began to unfasten his bandoliers, but before he could set down any of his gear, he heard noises approaching the door. He moved fast and low towards the back of the storeroom. Just as the front door opened and an armed squad of Colonel Katafi's men came in, Solid Snake saw a small back door to one side of them. He slipped through it before the terrorists could catch a glimpse of him. He was in a place he had never seen before. Ahead of them stretched a large area made up of what happened to be solar panels, but couldn't be, because there was no sun in the windowless room to heat them. On the other side of the panels was another set of doors, each of them holding the possibility of escape. To reach the door before Solid Snake would have to cross the panels. Behind them, he'd hear the terrorists talking noisily in the storeroom. His only escape route was across the panels. He could feel the heat rising off them while he was still 4 feet away. 3 panels were arranged and set 2 smaller panels on the other outer edges, and a larger, more intense-looking panel in the center. On the other side of the area, there was a control panel with switches and dials. Obviously, the panels could be turned on or off. What were these panels? What function did they perform? And a quick guess, without examination, Solid Snake thought they were made of silicon, a covering for fuel or energy cells intended to vent the heat created by an enormous energy source somewhere else. From Metal Gear? I'm trying to infiltrate the base, but the clap of my axe cheeks keeps alerting Gaddafi's men. Here they were, just as Chuck had warned them. This couldn't be anything but the heat panels. It had been a true warning, after all. Now the Snake Man's words came back to him again. You can't get to Metal Gear without crossing the heat panels. Burning. They burn. Eat the rations. You've got to raise your own body temperature if you want to survive. Rations. Solid Snake must eat. Right now. He pulled the rations out of his pockets and peeled the wrappings off. Halo swallowed quickly, almost choking on the dry and densely compressed rations, with no liquid to wash them down. He ate as much as he could find in his pockets, then turned to the deadly heat panels. He couldn't afford another moment's delay. The only way to turn them on... What the fuck is this? He couldn't afford another moment's delay. The only way to turn off the heat panels was on the other side of the room. Solid Snake to set off across the silicon cells. The heat was fierce, burning, just like Chuck had said. As Haley crossed the deadly panels, the temperature began to rise even higher. The heat became more intense and more intolerable the further he progressed. And he was still on the outer panels. What would happen when he got to the center panel, the one that really burned the flesh off of a man's bones? Solid Snake had eaten every scrap of fuel rations he had with him. He still had to face the central panel. Without more rations, suddenly, though, he felt a rise in his own body temperature. The calories he would eat... I'm sorry, what? Oh my god, this is the most ridiculous book I've ever fucking seen. Suddenly, though, he felt a rise in his own body temperature. The calories he'd eaten were taking effect. His body and internal organs were heating up to match the heat of the panels. He didn't understand why it worked, but Chuck's advice had saved his life. He was crossing the center panel now. Sweat was running down his head and body, but Snake ached from the heat, haze, and the glare. What? Snake was still alive. Thanks to Chuck's warning, the rations had their effect. He was in great pain, but he couldn't bother about that now. Instead, Justin was elated because he felt he was getting closer to Metal Gear. Justin Haley stumbled off the heat panels, more dead than alive. The first thing he had to do was shut off the heat. Finding the control board for the heat panels, Solid Snake closed the system down. Across the room were 3 doors. He opened the door on the left with keycard 1 and stepped through. Right? Game hint. You need the rocket launcher to defeat Arnold? Oh, interesting. Chapter 12. The Moving Bridge. Laser traps were everywhere, the destructive invisible rays cross-cutting and intersecting the hallway about 4 feet off the ground. Any one of them would have burned a hole right through Solid Snake, and 2 of them together would have turned him into Swiss cheese. Avoiding the laser traps by means of the infrared goggles, Haley made his way down to the west elevator. He thought he might be able to spot the location of Metal Gear from the roof. Solid Snake took the elevator to the rooftop. Hey! 2 terrorist guards were waiting for him, but Haley threw himself to the floor of the elevator and pressed the button to go down. Bullets penetrated the elevator door, passing over his head. How to get back safely to the roof? Maybe he could trick the guards. Haley left the elevator at the floor below and pressed the button to send it back up to the roof. Then he raced for the east elevator. Haley stepped out the east elevator onto the roof just as the doors to the west elevators were opening. He watched the guards let fly a hail of bullets from their automatic weapons, still believing that Solid Snake was in the west elevator. But he wasn't. He was behind them, only a foot away from their backs. With the butt of his Barretta, he knocked out both of them, cold. There were 2 more of Katafi's men who'd be out of commission for a long time to come. Ducking down, Solid Snake looked out over the top of Outer Heavens complex. From the roof he could see a bridge linking Building 1 to Building 2, and another building linking Building 2 to Building 3. Suddenly, it occurred to Solid Snake that both Dr. Petrovich and Metal Gear might easily be in the 3rd building. The clock ticking away, perhaps he could reach them without going through any more of this complex. Justin Haley had set foot on the bridge. The instant that Haley took his first steps, the bridge began to move. It was made up of overlapping metal panels, and although it appeared solid, it wasn't. Under the Marine captain's weight, combined with the weight of his gear, the plates began to shift, one way and the other, making yawning gaps. This was even more dangerous than the heat panels. Just one small false step, and Solid Snake would fall through a gap to the courtyard below. 3 long stories down, he'd be squashed like a bug. Loaded down by a grenade launcher and other heavy equipment, Haley moved with agonizing slowness. Inch by inch, left foot, right foot, he forced himself not to look down, not to think about the concrete pavement 3 stories below. At last, after long, agonizing minutes, Solid Snake crossed the bridge safely. Now he was on the roof of Building 3. In front of him was a small crate. Haley approached it carefully, then slowly opened the top. He couldn't believe his eyes. There were 2 objects inside. One was a mine detector, and the other was the radio transceiver. Now he could hear what Diana was transmitting. Haley strapped the equipment to his back and walked to one of the elevators. The door wouldn't open. He walked to the other elevator. None of his key cards would open that one either. So it was back to the rooftop bridge again, for another crossing to Building 2. This time he was weighed down by even more equipment. Solid Snake hadn't taken more than 3 or 4 steps out into the void when he realized that he was certainly going to fall. It was better to jump than to fall. It was a long way down, but Haley made over 200 parachute jumps. There must be a way to minimize the risk. With the panels of the bridge swaying and opening under his feet, Solid Snake had to work quickly. First, he put on the body armor. Then, he wrapped his weapon as tightly as he could in the bomb blast suit, tying the sleeves around the payload? Wait, what? Like an EOD suit? He just carries that around and, like, fucking ties the sleeves up like it's a fucking, like it's a cotton shirt? Paying particular attention to the safety of the radio, attaching the bandoliers to the bulky package, Haley gently hung them off the bridge and let go. Weapons landed with a thud. Were they still in one piece? Jess and Haley would soon find out. Problems with reading comprehension. Jess and Haley would soon find out. That is, if he landed in one piece himself. The bridge was swaying worse than ever, and huge cracks had opened between the plates. With the bridge giving way under his feet, Haley wrapped his arms around his knees, tucked himself into a ball, and jumped over the edge. Just before he reached the ground, he untucked and gave his body a half twist. As he hit the ground, he rolled over twice and slammed down hard with both hands. Scrambling to his feet, Justin Haley felt himself all over. Nothing broken. I'm sorry, this man just jumped 3 fucking feet and just, like, fucking barrel rolled as he hit the ground. Literally, what? What? What is this game? What is this? Interesting. Okay, sure. It's completely fine, man. He checked his weapons. They seemed to be okay. Even the radio didn't have a radio or scratch on it. Even the radio didn't have a scratch or dent on it. Another successful jump, only this time he had made it without the parachute. Not a jump he'd recommend to a squad as a regular exercise. Without his extensive training, he would have broken a leg, or even worse. Solid Snake took... I don't really think gravity has a fucking bearing on whether or not you break your leg from a ball, my guy. What? Solid Snake took a long look around. The courtyard was thick with trucks and tanks. Haley crept into the shadow of a truck for a better look. The truck had rations on the front seat, and he was out of rations, thanks to the heat panels, so he pocketed them. But there were armed terrorists everywhere. To divert the guards' attention, Solid Snake decided to blow up a tank. Placing a couple of anti-tank mines under a tank tread, he set the detonators and crept away unseen. Wait, they're mines, not plastic explosives, not... okay. Suddenly, a faint radio transmission, almost blanketed by static, came from his transceiver. What he needed was an antenna, so the broadcasts would come in clearly. Justin Haley could barely hear a woman's voice saying, "Boss man here, watch out, it's a minefield. Try to slip through wearing an enemy uniform." The message coming out of nowhere left Solid Snake very puzzled. How did Control know where he was? How did they pinpoint him on the edge of a minefield? Haley had lost his homing device on the trapdoor long ago, but suppose the compass hadn't really been the homing device. The compass had been the only thing that Foxhound Command had let him take into outer heaven, except for a suit of camouflage. The camo had come into outer heaven on Solid Snake's back. For the first time, Justin Haley realized that somewhere in his suit must be the real homing device. They'd been tracking him all along. But wait, if Control knew where the minefield was, Hadn't it also been aware of the heat panels, the shotgunner, and every other hazard that Captain Justin Haley had faced? Why hadn't Control warned him earlier? Why had his commander lied to him about the compass? Didn't the leader of the Snake Men trust Justin Haley? And now, if Solid Snake were to take off his camo and put on the enemy uniform, wouldn't Haley be off the computers of Foxhound Command? Wouldn't that be good or bad? Can I still trust Commander South? Haley whispered. He didn't know the answer. He felt totally cut off from his command. Game hint. You can often defeat the shotgunner by hitting him 10 times. Okay. Chapter 13 of Metal Gear, The Underwater Tunnel. In spite of the dangers that threatened him, in spite of the suspicions he held, no matter how justified he believed they were, Haley knew that he must continue to follow orders and carry out his mission. His training and discipline would not permit him to disobey a superior officer, even one whose motives were suspect. If he accepted Control's warning as true and got a hold of an enemy uniform, he'd have to keep his camouflage suit with him always, to make him certain that the Homer was operative. That would add even more weight to the load he was carrying. By now, Solid Snake was carrying with him enough gear for 3 men. Oh, Jesus Christ, man. Game hint, eat calories to survive heat. That's how I live in the summer, man. Holy fuck, dude. 3 dudes? Yeah, 3 dudes worth of gear. If he could find the homing device, remove it, and take it with him, Haley could leave the suit of camos behind. But first he had to find an enemy uniform. It didn't come empty. He'd have to empty one. On feet as quiet as a panther's. What is this book's obsessions with panthers? On a feet as quiet as a panther, Solid Snake sneaked up behind an unsuspecting tank guard and rabbit punched him. Out cold, working fast, Solid Snake stripped the guard out of his uniform. He slipped out of his clothes and put on the body armor again, this time next to his skin. Then he climbed into the enemy uniform and made certain the 4 keycards were safe in his pocket, along with the rations. Haley picked up his camos and ran his hand carefully over the entire uniform, sewn into the sleeve. Justin Haley located the miniaturized homing device. Now he wouldn't have to bring along the entire uniform, only the sleeve. Ripping off the sleeve, Solid Snake stuffed it into the pocket of the terrorist uniform he was now wearing. Employing the mine detector to protect him from the hidden mines, Haley took his first steps out to the minefield. Boom, boom, boom. It's behind him. Snake heard a series of explosions. The tanks he'd mined had been blown sky high. It was a monumental diversion, noisy and deadly. Frightened terrorists were running in every direction, yelling in fear. But Solid Snake couldn't stop to look back. Watching every step he took, Captain Haley managed to make his way through the minefield. Just ahead was a storage shed and a clearing. It had held something vital, thought Haley. Using keycard 4, he unlocked the shed. Inside, tied to a chair, was a captured Snake Man. He had been severely beaten. Solid Snake untied the man. Bill, it's me, he said. Never mind the enemy uniform, it's Solid Snake. The prisoner made gasping noises. Haley kept his knelt by the wounded man's side, put his ear close to Solid Snake's man's lips. Wait, oh, I'm sorry, what? Is his full title Solid Snake Man? Is that actually... Okay. Haley knelt by the wounded man's side and put his ear close to Solid Snake Man's lips. Wait, what? Dr. Petovich is on the 2nd floor of Building 2, gasped the prisoner, and closed his eyes. As the man passed out, his fingers pointed to a tile on the floor, one that appeared to be the same as any other tile in the room. But Haley looked more closely. The tile was loose. He moved it, and underneath was keycard 5. Solid Snake picked it up and pocketed it. Could he believe this man was Dr. Petovich on the 2nd floor, or was it a trap? Haley made a thorough search of the storage shed. He picked up more rations and made a very useful find, an antenna. Now the transceiver would work a lot better, and the radio transmissions from Control would come in a little more clearly. Kristen Handler decided to try for Dr. Petovich on the 2nd floor of Building 2, as the dying Snake Man had told him. But when he reached the 2nd floor, Solid Snake encountered a huge deep tank of liquid between himself and the next objective. Was the liquid plain water, or something far more deadly, such as acid? Whatever it was, Captain Haley didn't trust the look of it, and even so, he was going to have to get across it somehow. In 2016, the Marine Corps Times reported a new standard for strength and endurance. An average Marine Corps infantry officer should be physically able to carry 152 pounds for 9 miles. That load might sound extreme, but that even official documents describe carrying 100 chips as standard. Snake is literally... Yeah, holy shit, man, what the fuck? Um, Captain Haley didn't trust the look of it. Even so, he was going to have to get across it somehow. He approached it with a probing look, trying to scope it out. In the center of the tank, deep under the surface of the liquid, what appeared to be an underwater tunnel. Where did it lead? Was it the entrance to where Solid Snake should go next, or another one of Katafi's traps, or both? Once again, Solid Snake was facing a crucial test. The underwater tunnel ought to be investigated, but it might be a false tunnel. With no opening on the other end, Captain Haley could have been trapped down there and drowned. And also, he was loaded down with heavy equipment, weapons he would need to succeed in his mission. Although he was a powerful swimmer, Solid Snake would be hampered by the weight of the gear. Who knew how long in the underwater tunnel might be? A few hundred yards? A mile? 10 miles? How long could Haley hold his breath? Which was the fail-safe point, beyond which there was no turning back again? None of these questions had easy answers. Precious moments were being wasted in what-ifs. There was only one thing to do, and that was to dive in. Strapping his equipment to his back, Solid Snake filled his lungs with all the air that they could hold and executed a perfect jackknife into the water and swam towards the underwater tunnel. Good form. Inside the tunnel, it was pitch black. He swam for what seemed to be a very long time. The air in Captain Haley's lungs were depleting fast, but there was still no end to the tunnel. It just went on and on and on, getting darker and darker. Solid Snake realized with grim certainty that he was in a trap, but it was already too late to swim back to the starting point. Haley's breath would never hold out for long he was beginning to feel lightheaded. He couldn't make it to the surface because the heavy equipment was holding him down as though he had been tied to a rock. The situation began to appear hopeless. Solid Snake would drown, and Metal Gear would destroy the civilized world. Yet Haley would not give up, not while he still had air in his lungs. Suddenly, he saw, at the side of the tunnel, a small door. He swam to it and tried it, locked. By now, there was no... things were turning black in front of his eyes. There was almost no air left in his lungs. Perhaps he could unlock the door with a keycard. There was very little time left. He only had one chance to get the door open before he blacked out and drowned. Which card should he try? The new one, keycard 5. With wet and feeble hands, Justin Haley fished the keycard out of his pocket and managed to get it into the lock. He was on the verge of passing out, and then the secret entrance opened. Haley swam through it, into the shallow gutter on the side of the underwater tunnel. As he did, his hand scraped along the side of the tunnel and found something. Without thinking, he held on tightly to what he had found. Raising his face to the surface, Solid Snake drew in a great ragged gulps of air. Looking around, he saw that he had reached the other side of the huge tank. He was saved. Wet and trembling with exhaustion, Solid Snake drew himself out of the pool and lay in the rim, panting and gasping. He'd allow himself no more than 60 seconds to get his strength back, and then he had to go on. The mission was waiting. Dr. Pedovich was waiting, and maybe even here on the second floor, as the dying Snake Man had said. Haley scrambled to his feet. As he was about to shoulder his gear, he remembered the something he was holding in his hand, the thing he picked up in the underwater tunnel. He looked at it. It was key card 6. Game hint: don't always believe the map you get. The map you get, or what you hear on the radio. You'll find a lot of misinformation. Chapter 14: The Trained Killer Scorpions. The first room Solid Snake opened on the second floor held a prisoner, but it was not Dr. Pedovich. It was a member of the squad. He released the Snake Man. Haley received this message. Listen to Resistance Fighter Jennifer on waveband 12048. 12048? According to Commander South's instructions, Haley's transceiver had been set to 12033. Now he reset the wavelength and attached the antenna. Almost at once, Solid Snake heard, loud and clear, a woman's voice coming over the transceiver. It wasn't a voice he had heard before. It was not Diana. Jennifer here. I'll set up the rocket launchers. Come and get one. Over. Without delay, Haley went off in search of the rocket launchers, following Jennifer's radio signal by rotating the antenna and using it as a direction finder. I'm sorry, what? The radio transmission led him around corners through a long corridor. At the end of the corridor was a row of giant packing crates. Solid Snake realized that the crates might hold the rocket launchers, but most likely were another one of Katafi's fiendish traps. Which one of them contained the rocket launchers? Which was the trap? Up to now, Haley had always stayed away from the middle of everything he had encountered in Outer Heaven. The middle crate, the middle truck, but now he had a feeling. Instinct told him that at this stage of the game, Colonel Katafi would be ringing in some changes. He thought for the first time the middle crate would be the safe one. And it was. One more time, Solid Snake's instincts had served him well. The middle crate held the rocket launcher. He demanded. putt spot. Behind the crates, he saw a door partially hidden behind one of the pillars that held. I'm sorry, hold on. Behind the crates, he saw a door partially hidden behind one of the pillars that held up the ceiling. Using keycard 6, Haley got the door open. Inside was Dr. Petovich. At last, Solid Snake took an eager step forward and then stopped. All of his highly developed Snake Man instincts told him that something was wrong here. He smelt a trap. Where were the guards? There ought to be guards inside the room with a prisoner as vitally important to the Metal Gear project as Dr. Petovich. Taking one of the mines from his arsenal, Haley rolled it gently across the floor to where the doctor was sitting tied to her chair. The man didn't move, not so much as flicker of an eyelash. This isn't the scientist, Solid Snake said to himself. It's a dummy. I'm sorry, he rolled one of his landmines towards the doctor. I'm assuming it's not primed, but, like, it's still very funny. Like, thinking about he's just like, this is a mission vital, like VIP. Here's a landmine. Right, if it blows up, so help me God. Who's saying it's not prime? That's fair. That's fair. A booby-trapped dummy. Solid Snake fired a burst from his Mac 2, and the thing exploded, shattering into wires and stuffing. Haley hurled himself to the floor and covered his head the same instant that the mine under the dummy's chair went off with an... It was... What? So if it wasn't booby-trapped, and he rolled the landmine over... Wait, so... Yeah, so the mine... It was armed. Holy shit, what the fuck? Snake, what? Solid Snake fired a burst from his Mac 2, and the thing exploded, shattering into wires and stuffing. Haley hurled himself to the floor and covered his head the same instant that the mine under the dummy's chair went off with an ear-shattering blast. As he picked himself up and brushed the fragments from his uniform, just as Haley discovered in the debris on the floor, keycard 7. That's a durable-ass plastic keycard. The radio began to beep at him as Control's signal was received again. Haley heard the same female voice. Jennifer here. I have a compass for you. Follow my signal. Over. A thin, high signal began to emanate from the transceiver. A second or two later, it was matched by a transmission coming from one of the locked rooms in the hallways. Using keycard 4, Solid Snake located the compass. The room next door was unlocked by keycard 6. It held no prisoners, nothing but a small bottle. Cautiously, Haley opened it, held it away from his nose, and with his other hand fanned a little of the fumes away from his face and took a sniff. Solid Snake recognized the odor of the chemical from his training with the Snake Men. It was an all-purpose antidote to a number of deadly poisons. Quickly, he tucked the little bottle into his uniform belt. Suddenly, Justin Haley heard the heavy thumping of running boots. Terrorist guards were on the way. He had to get out of there. He raced down a corridor, through a back door and down a set of stairs that took him directly into a desert. A desert? Here in the jungle? Impossible. At least in nature, no. It had to be man-made. Another trap of catastrophes. Heaven only knew what awaited Solid Snake in the sands of the terrorists' phony desert. Oddly, Haley felt elated. The presence of the unlikely desert, here in the middle of nowhere, led him to believe that he was much closer to Metal Gear than before. The more difficult the obstacle, the nearer to the goal. As Justin Haley took out his compass to lead him across the desert, he heard a strange whirring noise. It sounded like something shuffling across the hot sands, something huge and dangerous. Before he could react to the sound, 3 giant creatures slowly came into view. Haley was nervous. These were trained, killer scorpions. Katafi used them to destroy his enemies, and now they were coming at him, poisonous stings held high in the sting position. What a horrifying sight. Even a man with the courage of Marine Captain Justin Haley had to turn pale. The trained killer scorpions were mutants, raised to grow to between 15 and 17 feet high. Their poisoned stings were as long as thick as a javelin. They had eyes that bugged out of their heads on stalks, and the stalks kept twisting this way and that, searching for their quarry, and they'd caught sight of Solid Snake. You could tell because a horrifying, high-pitched buzzing came out of the 3 of them, the sound of evil excitement. Slowly, they turned in his direction, and slowly, They moved towards Haley. Their bodies were covered with scales, and the scales made a sickening noise. They dragged across the burning sands of the desert. The curled tails of the trained killer scorpions were raised high, poised to strike, to sting, and to kill. They were slow, but what was the need for haste? Where could Solid Snake go? The desert, seemingly stretching around him for miles, was empty of shelter, and the sun was hot enough to broil a man alive. He had nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The scorpions loved the desert heat. They thrived in it and grew to enormous sizes. All they needed to survive was furnace heat and the frequent opportunity to make a kill. Justin Haley would have to stand and fight. He sorted through his weapons as the trained killer scorpions came closer. He could smell them now. They smelt foul. Solid Snake fired again and again until the clip of his Beretta was empty, and they still came, dragging their scales over the burning sands. Nothing seemed to stop them. Not Haley's grenades, nor his Mac 2. He braced himself, dropping a rocket down the breech of his rocket launcher and aiming through the sight. Solid Snake slammed his hand on the trigger button, and the rocket exploded from the tube. One scorpion exploded in a noxious burst of matter. He fired again. The rocket launcher was hot to the touch. The disposable firing tube wouldn't make much more use. A miss. Another rocket launched, then another, and the second of a trained killer scorpion blew apart messily, but the third one kept coming at Haley. Nothing appeared to faze the creature, not even the sudden explosive death of its brothers. Its stinger waved over its head, eager to plunge into Solid Snake's heart. Loading the rocket launcher, Haley hit the trigger button, but it misfired, and the rocket wasn't launched. Was the rocket launcher still operational? There seemed to be no stopping this evil creature. Ammunition of any kind showed no effect. The scorpion would have to be hit head on with everything he had. Solid Snake waited until the monster was almost on top of him. He waited until he could only see the color of the creature's beady eyeball. Wait, eyeball? Singular? It was green. Then and only then did he turn and aim the rocket dead on. But would the launcher fire or misfire again? Boom! The last explosion caught the giant lumbering creature full in the chest. With an eerie, high-pitched scream, it blew into a million poisonous fragments. Solid Snake was clear. Chapter 15. Ellen. I think that's my favorite chapter of this book so far. That's probably my favorite chapter of this book so far. That entire excerpt is the reason why I wanted to read this on stream. That's so fucking schizophrenic and insane. It's the most insane chapter. It's so good. Holy shit. What the fuck is this video game, dude? Holy shit. Alright, hold on. Sorry, I'm responding to something. I cannot possibly make that into a clip. What the fuck? I mean, I might do a reading of it. I don't know. Chapter 15. Ellen. Haley headed across the desert for Building 3 of Outer Heaven, determined to let nothing stand in his way. He had to rescue Dr. Petovich and his daughter and destroy Metal Gear before the evil weapon could be put into use against the nations of democracy. No more Mr. Nice Guy. Katafi was asking for it now. There were trucks parked in front of the building's side entrance, but a few mines took them out. Within seconds, he was in the building and using keycard 7 to get the elevator working. On the second floor, the rooms were opened by keycard 5. Solid Snake let himself onto one of the rooms and saw nothing. The room appeared to be entirely empty, and yet, Haley felt a prickle along his skin. His trained killer instincts were telling him that something was here, something of vital importance. He went to the far wall and ran his fingers across the rough stone. It felt solid, looked solid, and yet the tips of Solid Snake's fingers touched a line, running like a crack in the stone from the ceiling to the floor. He pressed harder. Harder. The crack widened, and a secret compartment in the wall opened up. A figure was stuffed in the secret compartment, which was barely large enough to hold it. It was a girl, bound and gagged and unconscious. Hi, Surface Tenchi, welcome on in. Is this the novelization of Metal Gear? So, to give you a summary, right, this has been an incredibly satisfying read, but back in the 80s, there was something called, Scholastic. Scholastic was a publishing company that made a lot of books that published a lot of books made for kids. In the 80s, video games were a much more popular medium that was quickly catching on, and a lot of parents, a lot of boomers, a lot of old people were very worried that video games would start to be like, worse than Satan. So they wanted to incentivize kids to read. So some boomers, some like really old farts, decided to take it upon themselves to make novelizations of NES games, and Metal Gear was one of them. And so this game, like so far, this book has been completely fucking schizophrenic. It's so good. Holy shit! I have not expect. Also, I have not expected this like book to be as like schizophrenic as it is. Right? Like for example, he lands in the jungle, right? And then he apparently finds flowers that smell like panther musk, and then he wipes it on himself, and then he gets on all fours and like scares off a bunch of dogs by smelling like a panther or something along those lines. He like finds cigarettes in a truck that like a guard was recently smoking, and then he goes, "Are the cigarettes poisonous? What do they mean by this?" Right? And he finds like rations, and like he just like fucking stuffs his pockets into all of them, right? He like keeps remembering his one like comrade telling him as they're dying, like, "Snake, you have to eat all the rations. You have to eat all the rations." Right? It's just like, what the fuck? It's so funny. Also, there's trans. Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Holy shit, it's so fucking funny. Solid Snake took the choking gag off and revived the girl gently, but when she saw the terrorist's uniform that Haley was wearing, she began to scream. The poor girl was obviously terrified. "Shh, it's all right." And Haley put his hand firmly back over her mouth. "I'm not one of Katafi's men. I'm Captain Haley of the Snake Men Squad. I'll take my hand away if you promise not to scream, okay?" The girl nodded and mumbled something. Carefully, Solid Snake took his hand away. "Are you all right?" he asked her in a low voice. The girl nodded through her tears. "I'm okay," she whispered back. "Are you Ellen, Dr. Pedovich's daughter?" "Yes, I am. Have you found my father?" The girl cried eagerly. "Not yet, but soon, I promise. Both of you will go home safely." Solid Snake looked at her face carefully. She looked tired and probably hungry, but she didn't seem to have been hurt. "Look, I'm gonna untie you now and take you somewhere to hide. I think I'll be safe until I come back for you. Try to hang in there and be brave." "I'll try, but I'm worried about my father," said the girl urgently. "Not as worried as I am," said Solid Snake to himself. "I'm gonna get word to him that you're alive, so don't worry anymore. Stay as quiet as you can and leave everything to me. I'll see to it that both of you get out of here safe and sound. Now, put your arm around my neck and lean on me. You're a brave girl, Ellen. I'm taking you out of here." She won't survive the heat battles. Haley left the girl in another room, making a mental note of which door she was behind. This is like the 8th person. He's just like, I'm making a mental note of that. He's gonna forget. Haley left the girl in another room, making a mental note of which door she was behind. And then he set off down the corridor. He was convinced that both Dr. Pedovich and Metal Gear were somewhere here in Building 3. Was there a basement in this building? He should check that out without delay. Neither the east nor the west elevator had a button for the basement, but maybe that meant that could be stairs hidden somewhere. If only he could find them. Maybe he could get some advice from Control. He spun the tuning dial on the radio. Solid Snake. Solid Snake. Boss man here. It was Diana, transmitting on a frequency assigned to her by Commander South. Justin heard the faint radio signal, and he recognized Diana's voice, but he paid no attention to the transmission. He only realized now that Diana's signal has been misleading him all along, that Jennifer really was his Control, a true freedom fighter. The only thing Solid Snake didn't know was just how much damage Diana might already have done. Game hint. Be sure to knock out all the guards before you enter the heat panels. Eat your rations midway through. Oh, I see. I mean, I guess it makes sense considering rations are what you use to heal, but it's still kind of funny. Chapter 16, The Map. Solid Snake found himself facing 3 doors. At first, he decided on the left-hand room, but as he approached it, all his instincts triggered a warning. Don't go in there. He changed his mind for the right-hand door instead, and the keycard 7 opened it. Haley expected to find a small room, but instead the door opened onto a vast, well-lit area, with locked doors running along the sides of the 4 walls. Suddenly, his transceiver came, Jennifer's voice. "Be careful not to kill him. He's my brother. If anything happens to my brother, I can't help you anymore." Her brother? Jennifer had a brother here in outer heaven? But why was she mentioning it now? The room seemed empty. Haley turned to the first locked door on his left. Using keycard 7, Solid Snake opened the door. 3 snake men prisoners were inside in a tiny room. The man in the middle was sitting bound but not gagged. That man was Bob O'Reilly, Eagle Man, Justin Haley's best friend in the Snake Man squad. When he saw his friend, Solid Snake broke into a wide grin and started towards him, but Eagle Man cried out to him in an agonized voice, "No! Solid Snake, don't take another step towards me. I've been booby-trapped, rigged up to plastic explosives. I don't know where the detonator is. We will all be blown sky high if you lay a finger on me. Listen to me, Justin. I am Jennifer's brother. My life is not important. Only the destruction of Metal Gear is important. You're very close now. How many keycards do you have?" 7, answered Haley. "Good. There are 8 keycards, so you only need 1 more. Metal Gear is hidden in the basement of this building, and Dr. Petovich is a prisoner there. It's very near to completion, and when it's complete, it'll detonate a series of catastrophic explosions all over the free world. You must get a hold of keycard 8. It's the only card that will unlock the basement location. Every second is precious. Go, now!" "Bob, I can't leave you like this," Solid Snake protested. "You don't have a choice, Justin," replied Eagle Man softly. "You better hurt. Who the fuck is Eagle Man? I'm sorry, I'm looking this up. Does Eagle Man, Metal Gear. Nope. There's no Eagle Man in Metal Gear Solid 1. That's funny. That's hilarious. That's very funny to me. That's fucking stupid. Okay. There is nothing for Solid Snake to do but obey, to leave Jennifer's brother, his best friend, tied up and booby-trapped. Justin left the room, but he didn't get far. The vital minutes were counting down, but Haley could not leave Eagle Man and the other 2 snake men to die. It was an impossible decision for him to make. He turned back. As Haley came back into the room, he realized that already Colonel Katafi's evil was at work. He smelt poison gas. The snake men were going to die. Putting his gas mask on, Solid Snake ran into the room and freed the 2 snake men on either side of Eagle Man, dragging them out. They were barely breathing, but still alive. Now for Eagle Man. But how to get him out of the poison gas when he was booby-trapped with explosives? In the doorway, Solid Snake watched in horror as Jennifer's brother's eyes shut and his head fell forward on his chest. The poison gas was beginning to work. The weight of Eagle Man's sagging body pulled over his chair with him. Instinctively, Captain Haley braced himself against the imminent explosion of the bomb trap. There was no explosion. As Eagle Man had slumped forward, his fall had pulled a wire loose from the trap. The chair disconnected the detonator. Instantly, Solid Snake seized Eagle Man and half-dragged, half-carried his friend out of the gas-filled room. He tried CPR, breathing fresh air down into Eagle Man's lungs, but his friend didn't respond. It looked as if Eagle Man was dead, but Haley wouldn't give up hope. Remembering the little bottle of antidote, he poured some of the liquid down his friend's throat, and, in less than a minute, he heard the choking and gagging that told him that Eagle Man was alive. Jubilation. Solid Snake pounded... Fuck. In jubilation, Solid Snake pounded Jennifer's brother happily on the back, and then he made a discovery. Pinned to the back of Eagle Man's uniform, in a mocking gesture of Colonel Katafi's, was key card 8, the last card, the one that Colonel Katafi had never expected anyone to find. He thought it would be destroyed when the booby trap exploded. Haley now had the final keycard in Metal Gear. Although he had all 8 keycards and the clue from Eagle Man that Metal Gear really was in the basement, Haley still didn't know exactly where to find Metal Gear. He only knew that the basement would be the most heavily guarded place in all of Outer Heaven. And first, he would have to find the stairs that led to the basement. None of the elevators were programmed to go there. If only he had more time! Justin Haley was slowed down by the equipment he was carrying, but he was afraid to leave behind any of it. Not knowing what he'd been up against, he really didn't know which weapons would be most effective. Did he really need all 8 of his keycards? Eagle Man said that the 8th one was the key to Metal Gear. Maybe he ought to think about leaving the other 7 behind, so that he wouldn't even have to waste even a moment looking for keycard 8. Looking to separate keycard 8 from the rest, Solid Snake shuffled the keycards in his hands, and as he did so, he noticed something for the first time. Something most unusual. On the backs of the keycards were printed different pieces of the same design, like a puzzle. It actually was a puzzle, and when Haley had laid the cards out together in a certain way, he saw the design for the first time. It was the same insignia that was all over the compound. Painted on the sides of the truck, the badge of the enemy uniform that Solid Snake himself was wearing, a grinning, fanged reptile entwined with a twisted, broken tree. The insignia in itself didn't surprise Justin Haley, but there was something more. With the cards all laid out, he noticed for the first time that the design was actually incorporated a map of outer heaven. There, in the coils of Solid Snake, were the different buildings and levels he'd gone through. He could make out the heat panels and the underwater tunnel and the desert with the trained killer scorpions. And there, in the center of Solid Snake's eye, was a very small star. Solid Snake knew at once that the star represented the weapon, Metal Gear. The rest of the map showed him exactly where in the basement to find it, and where the stairs must be leading to the basement. Committing the map to memory, Haley went in search of the stairway. According to the map, the stairway ought to be very near one of the pillars that held up the ceiling of the first level. Swiftly, Haley made his way to the pillar, but saw nothing. No sign of any stairway around it, yet Solid Snake was certain that he was in the right place. A sudden burst of gunfire chattered angrily past his head. Captain Haley dove for cover, but there wasn't any cover, only the presence of the pillar, which he hugged with his body. It wasn't much protection, but it was all there was. The situation looked hopeless. He was right there out in the open, in the middle of a firefight. He couldn't even see the terrorists. They were protected, shooting at him from the hiding places. All he could do was stay close to the pillar. What? Solid Snake touched something. It felt like a lock, down low in the base of the pillar. A lock! That was it! The stairway wasn't near the pillar. It was inside the pillar. Key card 8. He only had seconds to find it. Why hadn't he thrown the other key cards away? At last, keycard 8 was in Haley's hand. Filling it into the slot, Haley looked to see 4 guards breaking cover, racing at him with assault rifles. There wasn't a second to spare. Why would keycard 8 do the trick? A click. The side of the pillar opened like a narrow door. Solid Snake, grabbing up his gear, threw himself headlong into the opening and slammed the door behind him. He found himself falling into total darkness. I'm sorry, wait. Wouldn't the 4 guards just, like, alert other people over, like, a fucking radio or some shit like that? What is... Okay. Chapter 17. Metal Gear. Head first, Haley rolled down and down, unable to stop himself. When he finally came to a halt, his head slammed painfully against a step. He's fucking dying of a... He's fucking dying of, like, a fucking concussion. Holy shit. Sitting up, Solid Snake felt himself all over to see if anything was broken. Everything hurt, but everything seemed to be intact, although he had a headache that a Himalayan mountain of aspirin couldn't cure. Just as Haley had hoped, the pillar was hiding a stairway leading to the basement. Of course, he'd expected to be going down the stairs on his feet, not his head. A huge bump was beginning to rise on the back of his skull, but he didn't have time to pay it any mind. Hugging the shadow... My god, he just kind of reached to eat some fucking rations. Hugging the shadows, Solid Snake made his way cautiously down the remaining stairs. He was so close to his objective now that he could almost taste it, but all of a sudden he felt his body sagging. Weariness and fatigue overcame him, and he was so tired he could barely take another step. The fuck is that description? Don't worry about it. This man is using the potato salad strike. It was a long, long time since Haley had rested or eaten, and he was out of rations. Also, the weight of the heavy equipment he was carrying was sapping his strength, and his headache, perhaps from a slight concussion, was pounding away inside his skull, making it hard to think straight. He had to pull himself together, but it was very hard. Although the young Marine captain was well aware of the urgency for haste, he was afraid of making mistakes in judgment. Given his weakened condition, it was the most crucial part of the mission, and Justin Haley couldn't afford to make one false move. As Solid Snake entered the basement, he heard guards all around him. Haley knew that they were getting ready to unleash an attack on the free world, putting into operation the most powerful and deadly weapon ever devised by the mind of an evil man. If he used his weapons here, Solid Snake would reveal his presence. Before he even got to Metal Gear, he had to act as covertly as he could, disabling guards from behind rather than shooting them. His Snakeman training, not his powerful guns, mines, or grenades, was the only tactic he could rely on to get him to Metal Gear. I'm pretty sure the guns and grenades can help you get to Metal Gear 2, buddy. One by one, using nothing but his bare hands, Captain Haley took on the terrorist guards. His expertise, Tai Chi, I'm sorry, what? No, I don't need my guns. I just need my expertise in fucking Tai Chi. Oh my fucking god, holy shit. One by one, using nothing but his bare hands, Captain Haley took on the terrorist guards. His expertise in Tai Chi, his special breathing, and the natural movements of the animal world made Solid Snake a graceful shadow silently stalking the enemy's stronghold. Like a jungle cat, Haley prowled unseen and pounced without warning. His karate blows and rapid punches, delivered with trained precision, took out one enemy guard after another, and all in silence. The odd thing was that with every terrorist down, Solid Snake felt his strength beginning to return. He knew that he was coming closer and closer to his objective. And then, turning a corner with an image of a keycard map fixed in his memory, Solid Snake came face to face, for the first time, with Metal Gear. As soon as he saw it, Haley recognized it. Nothing that huge and ugly could be anything other than Metal Gear. It was a tall, wide machine made out of shining black metal that Solid Snake had never seen before. Metal itself seemed to radiate evil. Would this mysterious unknown metal be the source of Metal Gear's deadly power? Metal Gear was truly awesome, menacing and strange. On its side was painted the deadly insignia that Haley had first seen in the jungle and later encountered everywhere else in Outer Heaven. But displayed on the weapon, the evil markings took on a new and even darker meaning. Part of the machine was outfitted with a keyboard and a printer. So, I'm sorry, wait, what? Wait, Metal Gear just has a fucking printer and like an HP printer and a fucking keyboard attached to it? I'm sorry, what? Part of the machine was outfitted with a keyboard and a printer, so Solid Snake knew at once what he'd suspected about Metal Gear was true. It was computer controlled and probably hooked up to a network of computers located throughout the terrorist nations. Even now, the printer was chattering away, issuing a readout target of every major city in the free world. Justin Haley could see two buttons on the control panel, one red, one white, and a digital timer. Standing by the weapon's sides, leaning over the instrument panel, were two men. One of them wearing an elaborate uniform complete with medals and decorations. Hi, Momo, welcome on in. Wearing an elaborate uniform complete with medals and decorations was none other than Colonel Vernon Katafi, and the world's leading terrorist murderer. The other, hunched and broken, was Dr. Ivan Petovich. Solid Snake slipped back further into the shadows to survey the weapon. Metal Gear was housed in an octagonal booth of shatterproof see-through Lexan plastic. Each of the 8 sides was locked, guarded by an armed terrorist of matchless ferocity, strength, and cunning. These were Katafi's picked elite guards, his most murderous men. In the shadows, Haley watched in horror as Katafi selected his primary target. The Lexan shield, he couldn't hear their voices, but the gloating look on Katafi's ugly face was hard to miss, and Haley could almost hear that vicious laughter. Katafi took a step away from the control panel, and Solid Snake could make out on the screen that the chosen target was Washington, D.C. No! The protest was yelled out as Justin Haley's own mind, but from his lips came no sound at all. It was his snake men training that kept him silent. I'm sorry, what? No, the protest was yelled out in Justin Haley's own mind, but from his lips came no sound at all. It was his snake men training that kept him silent. Katafi adjusted his coordinates and pressed the red button. The digital countdown in seconds began. The destruction of the free world had begun. Haley saw the countdown start. 60, 59, 58. Less than 60 seconds to detonation. In under a minute, Washington would be reduced to rubble, and then the other capitals would follow. Ottawa. I mean, nothing. Okay, there's nothing wrong with losing Ottawa. I mean, same thing with London. I guess Tokyo's pretty cool. What the fuck is Canberra? Wait, guys, what's Canberra? Capital of Australia, and then we have Wellington, capital of New Zealand. Why does Australia what? Why does Australia and New Zealand matter to the free world? Huh, interesting. Anyway. Solid Snake thought faster than he'd ever thought in his life. It was now or never. This is what he'd been sent to do. 8 guards. That was less than 10 seconds per guard. If Captain Haley attempted to use grenade launcher or his rocket launcher or his mines, chances were that he'd blow the entire basement sky high, and it would be too late to disarm Metal Gear. What would happen to the weapon's nuclear payload that was no doubt hidden somewhere ready to launch? An explosion could trigger that launch. Solid Snake dropped all of his equipment. Perhaps his body armor would give him some protection. He glanced over and saw the display. 55, 54, 53, 52. What about the locks on the Lexan shield? 8 locks, 8 keycards. Thank goodness Haley hadn't left the other 7 keycards behind. What he had to do now was to defeat each guard in turn from 1 to 8 and put the right keycard into each lock in 60 seconds? Oh my god, what? Jesus Christ. When all 8 guards were inserted, Solid Snake was sure he'd be able to get to Metal Gear. It would be mortal hand-to-hand combat, like ancient Roman gladiators, between Haley and each of the terrorist guards in turn. The only advantage on Solid Snake's side was that the guards were unable to leave their posts to gang up on him, because they had to defend their locks every second. One by one, Solid Snake attacked the terrorists in a struggle of supremacy. The first guard went down, then the second, more than one. It was only Haley's body armor that saved his life. From outside, the young Marine heard an incredible racket going on. The instinct sounds of men yelling, voices yelling, muffled explosions, rapid gunfire. No doubt the entire terrorist army had been deployed to burst in here at any moment and kill them. Solid Snake was not afraid to die, but he was determined to take a taffy and Metal Gear with him. Each time he overcame a guard, Haley slammed one of the key cards to the slot at one side of the 180. So like the guy, he's not even looking, he's just fucking jamming the cards into each fucking reader. Holy shit, that's so funny to me. No doubt the entire terrorist army had been deployed to burst in here at any moment to kill him. Solid Snake was not afraid to die, but he was determined to take Taffy and Metal Gear with him. Each time he overcame a guard, Haley slammed one of the key cards into the slot at one side of the 8-sided shield. One more lock would disengage. The pressure was building. Haley could see 40, 39, 38, only 38 seconds remaining. Using all of his Snake Man skills, Solid Snake overthrew another guard, but even for the most courageous man in the Snake Men squad, 8 killers were too many to defeat in less than a minute. 3 were down, but 5 were still alive, with only half a minute to go. Only 3 keycards were in their slot. Fewer than half the locks were open. Perhaps it was the pressure he was under. Perhaps it was the pressure combined with his head injury, but Solid Snake suddenly felt as though the battle was all over, and he'd lost. Despair threatened to overcome him, and he felt his energy beginning to ebb away. Haley felt trapped and powerless, as though a strong net had been thrown over his body, that he was being dragged off to his death, helpless to do anything about it. It was Justin Haley's worst nightmare, a recurring dream from which he'd wake up from in a cold sweat. Now it was coming true. He was failing in his mission. Meanwhile, the seconds kept ticking down towards the destruction of the world. Suddenly, just behind them, Solid Snake heard the barking of gunfire. The terrorists must have broken through, and the enemy now had him surrounded. Chapter 18. The Final Battle. Snake of the rations. You gotta eat all the rations, man. Eat all the rations. At the sound of guns firing behind him, Solid Snake whirled around, ready to die, and equally ready to take as many of the enemy with him as he could. But to his astonishment, he saw not the enemy he expected, but Jennifer's brother, Eagle Man, Ray Fox, and other snake men he'd rescue, even Chuck. It was his old squad, weak and wounded, but coming to fight at Justin Haley's side. Metal Gear had been their mission too. Now Solid Snake was no longer alone. Now he had allies in the final battle. Only 2 of the snake men had found weapons. The other began attacking the remaining carts with sticks, pieces of brick, and stone. Who the fuck is Chuck? Who the fuck is Chuck? Oh my god. Oh yeah, that's right. He was the one that told him about the rations, right? Sorry, like... attacking with sticks and bricks. Oh my god, that's so good. Brick and stone, brother. Weakened though they were by the imprisonment and torture, their united strength caught the guards by surprise, and 2 more terrorists went down under the Snake Men's assault. Solid Snake raced over to insert the keycards in the 2 slots, 5 guards down, 5 locks open, 3 more to go. Now, Solid Snake needed all the allies he could get. Pushing aside the body of a fallen guard, he shouted through the open lock straight into the Lexan shield enclosure. Dr. Pedovich! Dr. Pedovich! Ellen is alive! She's safe! We're the U.S. Marines! We're the 30 U.S. Marines! We're waiting our cocks to be sucked! We've rescued your daughter. Hi, Olem Shreg. Rules of Nature. Yeah, this is a complete opposite end of the timeline, man. This is the first game in the series, except the novelization of it on the NES. Oh my god. Would the old man hear Haley's word? And if he did, would the words do any good? Dr. Pedovich is already so enfeebled. What kind of help could he give? Inside the Lexan booth, Dr. Pedovich appeared to come to life very suddenly. He stood up straight, and the years fell from his shoulders. Reaching out for Taffy's throat, he began struggling with the terrorist leader to get at the white disarm button. For a minute there, the combat between the 2 men was almost equal, but Colonel Katafi was a much younger and stronger man, and he was armed. Dr. Petovich had been subjected to the most vicious physical and mental torture, which had drained him of his strength. Yet, he fought on, made stronger by the knowledge that his daughter was still alive. With an effort, Katafi fought himself free of the old man's grip, drew his pistol from his holster, and brutally pistol-whipped the scientist. Dr. Petovich slumped to the ground, unconscious. Oh shit. But not before proving to Solid Snake what he needed to know. It was the white button that the Snakeman had to reach before it was too late. The white button was the only thing that could stop the countdown on Metal Gear. Time had slowed down. But each second moved too fast. The display read 24, 22, 23, 22. I can't fucking count numbers backwards. The battle continued. 7 of the 8 key cards had already opened 7 of the locks. Thanks to the help given by the Snakemen, 7 of the enemies lay unconscious. But there was still one more guard to go. One more lock to open. Captain Haley ran towards the guard, uttering his tiger yell. I'm sorry, fucking tiger yell kills me every time. Captain Haley ran towards the guard, uttering his tiger yell at the top of his lungs. The force of his rush knocked the assault rifle out of the guard's hands. Instantly, the 2 men were locked in a life-or-death situation. Bare-handed, one-on-one battle. The enemy had an advantage. All he needed to do was to keep Haley away from Metal Gear for a few more seconds, and the terrorists would win. The free world would be destroyed. The task Solid Snake faced was far more difficult. In the few seconds, he must overcome the guard, get the lock open, and then defeat the dictator, Katafi, in order to hit that white button. The enemy guard was fresh and very strong. Justin Haley was almost played out, a man with a mission. For many, many hours, he'd been without rest. He'd brave and endured hazard after deadly hazard, fighting for his life every minute. It was a miracle that he'd come this far. Did he had enough left to go the rest of the way? Now a weakened Captain Haley was struggling with the last guard, the strongest of them all. The other snakemen lay wounded on the ground, too exhausted to help him. They had already done their job. Now it was up to Solid Snake alone. Nothing mattered but that white button. You could see the countdown continue. 18, 17, 16. Now the enemy had Solid Snake by the throat, his powerful fingers closing, throttling, trying to squeeze the last breath out of him. Justin Haley couldn't free himself. He was blacking out. Desperately, he looked around for help. Jennifer's brother, Eagle Man, was the nearest of the snake men. He was lying on the ground, close to unconscious. "Bob, you have to help me," croaked Solid Snake, his voice squeezed to a whisper. "Take key card 8 from me and put it in the slot. You've got to hurry. Never mind me. Just get the card. We only have a few seconds left." Eagle Man raised his head weakly and nodded. Then painfully, inch by inch, Bob O'Reilly dragged himself over and pulled the card from Solid Snake's fingers. I'm sorry, Snake is still being fucking choked by this dude. While Haley still struggled with the terrorist, Eagle Man dropped keycard 8 into its lock. Now all 8 keycards were in place. Things began to happen all at once. As soon as the last keycard fell into place, the Lexan shield dissolved, disappearing into the ground. Metal Gear was now in the open, exposed, but the detonator timer was still ticking the seconds away. The digital timer displayed 15, 14, 13. The destruction of Metal Gear's Lexan shield took the enemy guard by surprise. For one split second, his hand loosened around the throat of Solid Snake. In that instant, using all his strength and cunning, Haley broke the guard's chokehold. Now, Haley summoned every ounce of strength he had left in his body. With his bare hands, he karate chopped the last terrorist guard and threw his limp form aside. Without thought for his own safety, Solid Snake threw himself towards Metal Gear, his right hand reaching for the white button that would disarm the weapon, but his hand never made it. As the Marine captain raced into the booth, with only seconds to spare before detonation, Colonel Katafi raised his pistol and fired. The bullet reached its target, slamming into Haley's shoulder above the body armor. Blood began to pump from the wound. The impact sent Solid Snake's body spinning, but before he hit the ground, he twisted his body in the air like a cat. If only he could... It was his last possible... I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Blood began to pump from his wound. The impact sent Solid Snake's body spinning, but before he could reach the ground, he twisted his body in the air like a cat. If only he could. It was his last possible chance of success, and it worked. Haley fell forward on the computer control panel, his hand outstretched. He saw the seconds move. 7, 6, With an angry roar, the dictator Katafi lifted his pistol to fire again, but before he could pull the trigger, Dr. Petovich, now conscious, reached up from the floor and yanked the terrorist off balance. The gun fell from Katafi's fingers. Haley could see that he was running out of time. 4, 3, 2... Solid Snake's hands reached the white button and pushed. The timer clock stopped, the countdown reading 000001. With only 1 second to spare, Metal Gear was out of commission. The world was safe. With a beast snarl of psychotic rage, Colonel Vernon Katafi threw himself at Justin Haley. The two men grappled with each other, each trying to get the upper hand. Solid Snake was younger and stronger than the dictator, but he was wounded and losing blood. Katafi was a master of every evil dirty trick in the book. The hand-to-hand struggle went on for minutes, and all the while the noise of a battle taking place nearby became louder and louder, the gunshots sounding nearer and nearer. Haley reckoned that his fight with Colonel Vernon Katafi would be his last. At any moment, the remainder of the terrorist army would be in here, and that would be the end of the Snake Men. But the mission was a success. Metal Gear was disarmed, and if Solid Snake could only hang on for just a little longer, he might be able to take Katafi with him. Then that would really be a blow struck for the free world. Suddenly, the battle was upon them. A group of armed men in uniforms ran in, brandishing their weapons. At once, Colonel Katafi made a dive for the floor, going after his own pistol. Solid Snake saw the action, kicked out with the last remaining bit of strength in the wounded body. The kick caught Katafi on the side of his head and knocked him out. The dictator lay sprawled on the side of the Metal Gear, the monster he created to dominate the world. Haley, what it cried in astonishment. Well, I'll be Solid Snake. Is that you? I'm hearing things, she thought, Justin Haley. It's that bump on the head and the loss of blood. I must be blacking out. I swear I heard. Solid Snake, it's me, Commander South. I'm here with the Foxhound command troops and the rest of the Snake Men squad. We've got out of heaven, completely surrounded. My men are rounding up the last of the terrorists now. I can't believe you're alive. But you're wounded, man. You're bleeding bad. Medic, get over here on the double. Get this Marine some help. I'm all right, sir. Just a little woozy. Take care of my buddies first. Solid Snake pointed to the wounded Snake Men. Eagle Man. Gray Fox. Commander South couldn't hide his astonishment. Did you free them, Haley? Yes, sir. And I found Ellen Petovich. She's safely hidden. That's Dr. Petovich. Just getting up from the floor. He's on our side, sir. Is that thing Metal Gear? Asked Commander South. Yes, sir. Prime, loaded, and out of commission. I don't know what to say, Haley, except well done. Now let's get you out of here and into a sick bay. You can tell me all about it when you're feeling better. I feel fine, sir, and very glad to see you. But what about Katafi, sir? Katafi? Colonel Vernon Katafi, was he here? He's out cold, sir. Lying right... Solid Snake broke off, mystified. The spot where the dictator had been lying was empty. Katafi was not there. He's gone, sir. He must have escaped, but... Haley took one step backward, wobbled and nearly fell. He lost a lot of blood and was getting weaker by the minute. Easy now, Solid Snake. Commander South put his arm around Justin Haley's arms to steady him. That evil maniac must have gotten away in the excitement. He knows every inch of this wretched place. There must be 1,000 holes for him to crawl into. Don't worry. One of these days we'll get him. Meanwhile, the chopper is topside, and the doctors are waiting. Haley wouldn't move until he saw the last of his squad buddies loaded onto the gurneys. Then slowly he followed Commander South out of the basement's arsenal. His job here was done. Solid Snake's mission had been completed, and successfully. Metal Gear was now harmless. And in the possession of the forces of democracy, the Snake Men prisoners were on their way to the best medical attention in the world. Ellen and Dr. Petovich were safe. The world was safe. Even so, Haley knew that something was missing. His victory was incomplete. He had the bitter taste of ashes in his mouth. The doorway Haley turned. He spoke very softly. Wait for me, Katafi. I'll be back. So wait for me. You belong to me. Soon I'll be coming back to collect. Next time, you won't get away. He spoke very softly, but somehow Solid Snake knew in his heart that hidden away somewhere, Colonel Katafi heard his words. Dear reader, I hope you liked reading Metal Gear. Here's a list of some other books that I thought you might like. You can find these books in your local library or bookstore. Ask your library or teacher for other books you might enjoy. Best wishes, FX9. Other Worlds of Power books you will enjoy. Blaster Master, Metal Gear, and Ninja Gaiden. Oh, dude, fucking sweet, dude. Alright, I'm gonna find Ninja Gaiden, Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, and fucking Mega Man 2, and I wanna read them. I wanna read them on stream at some point. Alright, that's the story, everyone. So, what did we think? What did we think about Metal Gear Worlds of Power? Did you guys like it? How was it? Unironically, I've been listening to this fucking, like, ambience, like, rain shit for hours. I'm tired of it. THB Family Ding Dong, but, like, regardless. What'd you guys think of it so far? That was probably one of the most wild, like, things I feel gay after having read that. It's completely fair. Oh my god. Wow, holy shit, that is bad. That's so fucking funny though. Oh my god, I love the idea of like the snake men. 30 US Marines ready to suck cock. Ram Ranch really rocks. Remove all the straps and all my equipment? Yeah. Dad, please. What are you talking about? This is what the people want, right? That's what ASMR mics are used for. I get really close to the mic and it's really fucking awkward, right? I don't know. Anyway. You don't like your older sister's voice in your ear? Dad, please. Mega Man novel is Snake Man 2. I wanna look this up. Fellas. Give me a quick second. Worlds of Power, Mega Man 2. Let's see. PDF. Wait. Oh, it's online. It's fucking online, dudes. Look at this shit. Oh, that's so fucking awesome. Worlds of Power, Mega Man 2. Oh, baby. Oh, dude, that's fucking sweet. I need to read this at some point. This is so fucking sweet. This is so fucking dumb. Show the cover. Sure. So I know it's opaque, but it's because it's to set the atmosphere. But Mega Man 2, a novel based on the best-selling Nintendo game by Capcom, Mega Man 2, a book created by FX9. Wait. Huh. It's funny because, like, they had to airbrush out all the guns and all this, right? So you'll notice in the Metal Gear cover that he's not holding a gun, right? They airbrushed it out of the overall cover of the... Hold on, so... Metal Gear... NES box art. So if you don't know, Metal Gear's original box art was actually based off of Kyle Reese from The Terminator, right? So it's actually a one-to-one representation of it. What was really interesting was that going into Metal Gear, the actual cover of the box art was, in fact, him with a MAC-10 on it, or whatever gun he had, right? And if you actually look at the Metal Gear book for, you know, Worlds of Power, they airbrushed the guns out. So if you look, sorry, yeah, the MAC-2, sorry. But one of the reasons why it's fascinating is because of the fact that if you notice in the entirety of the Metal Gear book that we just read, he had never fired a single bullet at a bad guy. Now that is liberal propaganda right there, let me tell you. Now, it's interesting because what's very funny about it is the fact that you could basically he fought his entire way. He shot at killer scorpions, right? But the scorpions weren't human. He never shot any humans. He pistol whipped guards, or you know, baseball batted a guard away, right? Or you know, smacked them with his hands, or karate chopped, or tiger yelled, right? Those were American scorpions. No, they were from the country of Noria or whatever, right? Yeah, he also threw armed landmines at possible vehicles. You're right. He never used his grenade launcher once in the entire book, which, I mean, on the other end of the spectrum, what is it? Mega Man 2 NES box art. So if you actually look at, say, the box art for Mega Man 2, The Mega Man 2's box art on the NES, for some dumbass reason, has a gun. Just like a fucking full-on, like... Yeah, he's just a fucking gun. But the box art, the book cover for Mega Man 2 Worlds of Power, he just has the gun photoshopped out. So am I the only one paying? It's so fucking good, dude. It's so fucking great. Oh my god. Hold on, I want to see. Is there a back cover uploaded for this? Or only our robot superhero can save the universe from the evil Dr. Wily and his gang. The toughest, baddest robots ever made. Can Mega Man defeat Flash Man, Crash Man, Bubble Man, and the rest? Will the universe be safe again and for honest people and robots? That's so silly. That's so stupid. Alright, so this is 73 pages. That's not so long. Alright, that's so fucking funny. Alright, Worlds of Power. This might be my favorite fucking line of... Okay, so, I mean, let me get your feedback. What do you think about the ASMR stream? Or the reading stream? I know it's technically under ASMR, alright? And I don't really think I'd be the kind of individual who'd, you know, do the silly... I don't think I'd be the kind of individual who would be doing silly noises into ASMR, right? Where I'd, you know, come into the microphone and I start licking into your eardrums or something along those lines, right? Like, I wouldn't do that, because that's a little fucking bizarre, right? But, you know, it's an option. Wait, give me a quick second. I want to check something. If I turn the mic around, is that louder? Is that louder if I... Oh, okay. Oops, it turns out that I have to be speaking towards... Okay, I didn't realize. Oops. The gun sound effects are very appreciated. Alright, I mean, let me quickly take this gun apart. Actually, I wanna fuck around with it. Oops. Oops. Sorry. Takedown is always kind of funky first time. Okay, so it takes down like a Glock, kind of, right? You wouldn't mind if I was just a smidge louder? That's fair, right? Yeah, so the takedown lever is pretty much operated the same exact way. And then, there we go. So I can take apart the... What is it? Take apart the slide. That's the guide rod. The barrel as well. Do I have any carbon on my... Oh, I mean, it's not. It's a perfectly clean, like, unfired pistol. It's pretty solid. Right? I don't know. Let's see. Glock, are those like the guys from the BuyHorseSeaman.com? Wow, it's like Noona. It's really about to put a bullet in my brain. Anyway, I mean, I don't know, right? Like, I'll try to be louder next time, right? I'm getting more used to this microphone, but it is a fun way for me to interact. I don't know. I mean, I know Sura rated me, and I know a lot of the viewers today are lurkers for Sura's stream, but I am going to say, if you're gooning right now, continue gooning. Dad, no. Yeah? I mean, it's funny. I made you laugh. Remember, Dad can see you goon. Yeah, I can. I can see into your mind. Did I just do that with my freaking mind? Oh shit, whoops. Fuck. I dropped it. I missed the chance to goon after all the hot guard action. Yeah, pretty much, right? Come on, guide rod. It's going. There we go. Yeah, maybe I really should just do like a gun sound ASMR stream where I just do for like 4 hours. Anyway, I'm sure that's not exactly comfortable for everyone's ears, but I also just realized something. This doesn't have a Takaka on it. How does Striker fire at pain? I guess. Whatever. I guess you could just pull the trigger. What am I looking at? Dad, that's gunning, not gooning. Are you telling me it's not the same thing? Do you not get sexually aroused by firearms? It's pushing, not cooshing. Stroking the action doesn't make a gooning. Yeah, stroking the action doesn't make a gooning, fellas. Anyway, tell me. Did you guys have fun? Did you guys enjoy Metal Gear and Worlds of Power? What was your favorite part? Tell me what your favorite part of Metal Gear Worlds of Power was. I personally really liked Panther Musk, and I think the trained killer scorpions might still be the best part of this entire fucking book. Good lord. That's so fucking stupid. Like the fact that I'm smelling like Panther Musk, right? I love the fact that his like comrades are called the Snake Men, and apparently they're not even recorded in like the Pentagon. I love how, like, the fucking ending, in order to help Snake, the Snake Men come in, and they're, like, broken and battered and fighting with sticks and fucking bricks and stone. Really, the Homer... Oh my god. Yeah, I love the fact that he, pounded his best friend, Eagle Man. You pound your best friends here and there, right, fellas? It's understandable. Anyway, I hope that was a comfortable bedtime story, fellas. The poison cigarettes were also... There was also the poison rations, too. The motherfucker is just, like, paranoid schizophrenic. Like, every time he rescued an ally, he was like, are they lying? Are they lying? What do they mean by this? Right, and it's just like, oh my god, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Right? I don't know, man. Anyway, you guys want anything before I go? Right? Oh yeah, they physically identify the most powerful shotgun that can create. The shotgunner, oh my god, that's so fucking good. Oh my lord. I think, yeah, no, this is a trip. This is a fucking trip, man. That being said, yeah, that's all I think I have for you today. Tomorrow I plan on playing some Golden Sun, right? We're gonna continue going through that game, and hopefully we have a little bit of fun. And I hope you guys enjoy. I want to, you know what? There is a person I want to raid. She's playing Death Stranding, and I wanted to, you know what? Yeah, you know what? She does a lot of Metal Gear comics on Twitter, and she is a 3-year right now, but I am going to raid her because I think it'd be very fun. Anyway. Thanks for joining me, chat. I hope you have a very wonderful night. I'll see you tomorrow for Golden Sun. And I'll also, if you're new here and you're not following, follow the channel. And if you want to join the Discord